Hey, everybody. Welcome to Rising from the Ashes special mirror tripod mini series that we got going on here. And yet again, with another rockstar lineup of some fantastic weavers. Everybody's out and about on this summer solstice day. And what a better day. Actually, we made this happen on this day because we knew it was going to be summer solstice. And there's significance within the moon, and there's just a lot going on energetically. And as if you guys listened to the last episode, we talked a lot about the energy of mirrors symbolically throughout history and our ancient ancestors, and the importance of mirrors basically all the way back: ancient Egypt, ancient China, Mesoamerica, undoubtedly, like, insanely. And then followed into Renaissance, up until now, and then it created the entire optics that we know, and the black mirrors in which you guys are probably watching this on. So this is awesome. I'm really stoked to get this middle episode going, the keystone episode, if you will. And yeah, let's bang this out. Let's have everybody introduce themselves. We can start with the man I'm looking at here with his beautiful, nicely trimmed beard, Gordy. Oh, a little muted.
There I am.
There we
I am
go.
so muted. Okay. Hey, bud, look at where I am. I am in the owl tree, and I got one staring at me right up there, little guy, one of the babies. So two of the babies are still in the tree, and mom was just here and oh, there she is. Wait. Let me see if I can see her. Right. Let's see, right in there. You can kind of see her in the thick there. Anyway, they're here. They're real. And we're going to tear down the whole mirror universe thing again. Is this what we're doing? We're going to do this?
Oh yeah, we already ripped open the portal, man. We might as well just you can't stop in the middle of space.
Dude, it'll open space for us and time, apparently. So we're going to find out that this is going to, that again, what's the word?
Yep.
The psychomantium is nothing to fuck with.
Woo! All right. And then let's go. What's happening, Rachel?
Oh, just weaving.
Better be weave it.
Just weaving.
Doing
Doing stuff with spiders, doing stuff with Odin's alchemy, watching how potent of a talk this was, and seeing the community really open up about it and explore it. And I think this is an incredibly important conversation right now, for sure.
Yes, that's awesome. It's funny about Odin's alchemy. That man was just at my house less than an hour ago.
Nice.
Him and his awesome wife, and they gifted me a cast iron pan, and said, "Hey, you guys, I got to fucking finish this slideshow. I got things to do. You got to get out of here because those guys can talk." Anyways, that's awesome, and you're so right. This is like I said, we made this happen on this day because the timing is absolutely important. And sometimes divine timing, comes when you make it happen, right? Because humans are divine. We're tapped into that. The universe will provide all of the divine timing, but sometimes you need to put a little bit extra effort in it to make that to connect dots. So that's beautiful. Thank you so much, Rachel. And then we got someone new to the Mirrorverse here. What's happening, Mario?
Hey, dude. I'm happy to be here. Yeah, I checked out the last episode where you guys were talking mirrors, and I thought it was very pertinent information, especially because we were in Gemini. And I just have to say too that like leading up to that episode, it seems like all of the things you were putting out on Telegram and what have you, they were really speaking to me, and it was really speaking to a lot of the stuff I was looking into with Gemini. So I just felt like you were extra tapped in, or you're extra tapped in currently. And so I was down to join the conversation and just throw in my 2 cents, because there's a lot going on here. It's a fascinating topic for sure.
You know, and I didn't realize how deep it was until we just really started going into it, and it like I'm like rubbing my face right now because I'm just like, God, it's been such an overload of information, but it is pertinent within. It's so crazy when you start to look at things, you know, on the historic lens, and you're like, okay, I wonder if this has any historic significance. And then it does not only has historic significance, but it has spiritual significance, and it has um you know I what's the paranormal significance. It's just so much significance, and I'm like, wow. And why did it take so long for me to understand this now? But like I said, divine timing, you know, happens, and then now we're in the thick of it. And you know, Rachel and I were talking the other day. There's been synchronicities happening ever since we did this. I'm not sure if Gordy's had any ever since our last chat. Do you have any synchro mystic experiences since our last mere chat, sir?
Well, a lot of other people, I hear a lot of different conversations, you know, not connected to us,
Mm-hmm.
that are it. So it's in the zeitgeist somewhere, and because I hear all these other different conversations that are not it within our community, that are kind of external to that would have no connection to us. So it's happening out in the real world as well as the mirrorverse. I think, you know, as we're going in, we're affecting that outer reality, I think, you know. And this is kind of what we do. What we find that the whole Spider-Verse thing is happening is that this whole synchronistic, the more we weave and connect to each other in these kind of things, I think we're finding that the real world is reacting back. And in our dreams, a lot of us in our dreams and in our just our daily contemplations, and you know, the void looks back at you when you look at it, right?
Mm-hmm. That's, I mean, the mirror would say so.
Right.
Wow. That's the mirrored reality if I ever heard it. And it's so true. And it's funny because, the Spider-Verse, not only speaking of like the Marvel Spider-Verse, that is a thing, right? The multiverse within that spider realm, but also the Spider-Verse that is the Weaving Spider's Welcome. And you know what we learned last time when we started looking at the history of Mesoamerica, ritualistic use and significant spiritual use of mirrors. They had spider significance. There was a web connection with that, and I brought that up again in these other slides because we're going to touch in on the ancient Chinese again, but go a little deeper on a different area. Really, really cool stuff that I found. And then we're going to go in again, even deeper into the Mesoamerican stuff. So we'll see the webs again. We'll see the spiders again, and the significance, and these specific animals that hold archetypal significance. And I see Rachel put up here in the chat that you've been doing some mirror work. Do you want to enlighten us on WTF that is?
I mean, I was actually really glad somebody mentioned it on Vibrant. I believe was it Emily that was on last? She was talking about, this is something I already knew about, so I was really glad that she brought this up, is using a mirror for healing and like really mirror gazing. I use it a lot with affirmations. Just, you know, watching your face change and shift, and watching the emotions, feeling the emotions that are coming up with all that, and reinforcing the truth. You know, it's like, wow, I can see that. I can see this. Okay, here's what's true. And here's what I see when I look. And here's what I will not see when I look. So that kind of mirror work is really powerful. It internally, when you make decisions, you're rearranging your own mirrors. You're rearranging your archetypes and the things that you look at to reinforce those visions. You might say this t-shirt no longer reflects me. This one does. So it is that domino effect on the inside. It's a ripple effect. But it's pretty amazing. It's deep work. You wouldn't think so, or maybe you would. If you don't think so, heads up. It is very deep work, for sure.
Yeah, that's interesting. You bring up the ripple effect aspect too, because there's not only scrying in mirrors, but there's also scrying in water, and scrying in water and hydromancy, which they go hand in hand, right? Because we know that in theory, one of the original creations of the mirror came from Narcissus and his reflection in the water, and to capture that magical moment, because Narcissus was narcissistic, right? But it was also relevant to have that energy and that archetype, which lives in all of us, right? There is the Narcissus deep within, and it's not necessarily a terrible thing to look into the water and fall in love with your reflection. If anything, it can create a bond stronger within your own body and your own mind. But having that balance and that connection with yourself, the balance, which mirrors are balanced, they're an alchemical balance, they're an alchemical creation, and you have to have it, the balance, in order to even create the mirror. And so it goes in psychologically as well as it does alchemically. And to speak again on the ripple effect, one of the things in hydromancy is sticking something in the water and pulling it back up, and the ripples come out, and you count the drips that come out. And liquid mercury, you can kind of look at that stuff, and so the ripple effects are very real in reality, within the physical realm, the conscious realm, the goopy thickness, as I like to say. And yeah, so I suggest people carefully try it, because we brought up like that spirits can kind of like contort themselves in the mirror realm, but also your spirit can be there, and you can connect with your own spirit as well. So try it out, people. I mean, let us know what you think. Get on Telegram or pop on the comments here, and let us know what experiences you have, because this is something that I think that can potentially magnify the potency, the spiritual potency that's needed at this time to, I don't know, maybe change the world, change the paradigm, against the crazy shit that's going on. So anyways, anybody got something to say? What's happening, babies? What's good?
Sure. Yeah. So just notice how ripples work, right? Is that there's something that touches the water, and then there's concentric rings that emanate out from this center, from this sacred center, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of sacred center symbolism that is encoded within the lore and the mythology of mirrors. Because when you're looking at yourself in the mirror, you are looking at the sacred center as well. So that's something that I'll be talking about throughout today's presentation and as we chat it up here.
Yeah,
Wow.
I'd like to go a little deeper when you touch on that, because
Sure.
it definitely ties in.
Cool.
I want to say to the sacred center of Gordy's head, when he angles his camera just right, and the tree behind him looks like some like antlers coming out. There it is. Oh yeah, super sick. That's the vibe
Love
right there.
Yeah, that's really cool, man.
And then look at those mandalas in the back there. See that Rachel's got going on. There's a lot with this, the wheel aspect, this concentric rings, the ripple goodness, and it's all there. It is all there, my friends. Okay, here we go. We're just gonna get going on these slides. Boop. Uh-oh. Where are we at here? Hoi. Oh, so many things on my screen. Should probably already have this pulled up. Okay, here we go. Yes, mirrored reality. There was so much to dig into. Like, I don't even think 3 episodes is going to cover it all, but maybe we'll come back and touch it all again. You know, it's insane. There's just so much, and especially when you dig into modernity, when you look into modern mirrors and modern mirrored reality with the screens and rips in time and space and the electromagnetic sphere, and all the work that the government is doing and NASA with that. There's just so much, and it's so deep. It's so deep. Especially when we talk about portals, right? And we talk about portals. Where are these portals going? Why are they going these places? And who is controlling these portals? Who's in control of the sacred center? This is just a random piece of art that I like here. This is the Lighthouse of Alexandria. If you guys are familiar with that mythos there. It's not relevant, honestly, at all. But let's start in ancient China and Japan. These are this cool discovery I found that correlate to the bronze mirrors of ancient Asia, but they're called the sun and moon mirrors, and they have significance to the origin stories that the ancient Chinese have in their mythos. And it's a beautiful origin story because they're so connected to the cosmos and astrology with it, as well as the elements, which is something that I can't deem enough importance. In ancient China, there are some tales of how the creation of the sun and the moon were created that were then later translated to mere technologies to obtain the elemental spirit as well as the physical property of water in the moon basin. In Taoistic ideas on fire, this third chapter in this book that I found contains interesting passages concerning the Taoistic ideas of fire, and also mentions the sun mirror and the moon basin. Those passages run as follows. At the winter solstice, really quick, I just want to say, this book that I found has a synchro to Mario and your partner in the work of mugwort.
Nice.
I didn't realize the significance of mugwort in ancient China as a special herb, but TCM TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, is broad, as deep and broad as Ayurveda, obviously, and so just wanted to throw that out. And you guys know that after each slide, if you guys want to butt in, just make a little peep or what have you. I can't see anybody because this share screen's on, but anywho, here we go. At the winter solstice, the water follows it, the virtue, blessing, power. At the summer solstice, the fire follows it. Therefore, in the 5th month, the fire is correct, and the fire drips. In the 11th month, the water is correct, and the yin conquers. Yang spirit makes fire, and yin spirit makes water. The hot spirit of accumulated yang produced the fire, and the essence of fire spirit formed the sun. The cold spirit of accumulated yin formed the water, and the essence of water spirit formed the moon. The Tao of heaven is said to be round, and the Tao of earth to be square. Square rules the darkness, and round rules the light. The light is that which emits, it spits out its spirit, therefore fire is called the outer light. The darkness is that which retains, keeps it in the mouth, its spirit, therefore water is called the inner light. He who emits his spirit distributes it, and he who retains it transforms it. Therefore yang distributes and yin transforms. Water produces wood, wood produces fire, fire produces earth, and earth produces metal, and metal produces water. The fire rises up like seaweed, and the water flows down. Therefore the birds fly high, and the fishes move in the depth. The classes of beings set each other in motion, and their original marks correspond with each other, i.e. the yang with yang and yin with yin. Therefore, if the sun mirror sees the sun and held towards the sun, it burns and makes fire. And if the moon mirror sees the moon and held against the moon, it is moistened and makes water. A commentator to the last passage gives the following explanation of the yang sui sun mirror. It is made of metal. They take a metal vessel without verdigris by rubbing it intensely, and they make it hot. And when the sun is in the middle of its course, they turn it towards the sun. And if they receive it, reflected the concentrated rays by means of mugwort, it burns and fire is obtained. The feng chu, or yin si, the moon mirror, is a big frog, lizard, mussel, or clam, which is heated by rubbing it intensely when at a full moon is held against the moon and water is produced, which it is received by means of a copper basin. Thus, several drops of water are brought down from the moon, and this is explained by ancient scholars. In another commentary to the same passage, the Taiping Yulan is quoted, which prefers to the following explanation is a pearl or a square stone, and they receive it, the water, by means of a copper basin, and they bring it down several pints. We also learn from the Pen Sao Kengmu that the Yang Sui is the fire mirror, which is cast from copper. Its surface is concave, and it's made hot by rubbing, then held against the sun, which this mugwort. Oh, I just read this passage, right? Oh, no, I did not. It's a different one. Sorry. When taking the mugwort to receive it, namely the heat of the sun reflected by the mirror, they obtain fire. This is the bright fire taken from the sun by means of the fire mirror. By the Se Quen Shi, mentioned by the Cheli or Chuli, as to use the sun mirror or the fire pearl and the fire drill in preparing the moxa, mentioned by the Pensao Kang Mu. We may refer to the reader our chapter 3, medical use of fire. Shedlel quotes the Let Sing Jiecha, which refers to the Hangna Tse's work. The sun mirror sees the sun. It is held against the sun and it burns and makes fire. The sun mirror is made of metal, the metal taken for its brilliant, violent, fierce, and without verdigris. And we got one more here. It is not strictly necessary to use brilliant metal, for also a big crystal ball was held against the sun to reflect its rays, or according to the Po Wu Chi, a work of the 4th century of our era, ice is cut into a ball. If this is held against the sun and its reflection is received by means of mugwort, there is fire. The commentaries to the passage show that the ceremony is used to take place in the middle of the day or in the morning when the sun had reached a certain height, and that mugwort, well known in China and Japan as a caustic, served to receive the rays concentrated by the mirror. The fire obtained in this way was bright fire, which expression apparently indicates the intense, pure, brilliant light of the sun, which at the same time dispels darkness and cold, gives new life to everything. We found the same character used in the Yi King to define the trigram, Li. It is also indicates as pure, bright soul living on as refulgent spirit after death. And when it is separated from the body, the bright water taken from the moon was dew caught into a copper basin by means of the yin mirror held towards the moon. Thus, the great sacrifices were prepared and offered up with the pure sun fire and moon water, and illuminated by pure light taken from the sun. So, what do you guys think about the sun and the moon mirror?
I think it's amazing. Well, my first thought was how close it was to Nordic symbolism with fire and ice, starting everything out. And I actually really appreciated this whole passage because in medicine, metal produces water, right? And I'm like, how does that even work? So this is a great illustration on how that works. It's from condensation, so that's, which I find fascinating, that's an element that creates water. Like, where would that even come from in nature, right? Do we even think about where water comes from, how it's formed. It's just there. It just is part of life, right? We don't think about that. So I like having this context of the sun and the moon mirrors. And using them is fascinating to me, the different methods of reflecting. And I would have to read more of this book, I think. But I do think it's kind of neat that, it's describing the quality of light, the quality of heat in the sun. It's like taking the sun and putting it into a context that we on Earth have. That's what a mirror does, right? It puts it into our context. It puts it into an expression that we can understand. It looks exactly like us. SB Alder on the last weave said something that stuck with me this whole time, and he mentioned asymmetry. And I love asymmetry. So I think that's why it's just in my head, because I'm like, wow, somebody finally talked about this. But, that's what that is a reflection of. We have, we could say the sun is the right hand and the mirror is the left hand, or vice versa, whichever, So it is a perfect reflection, in a sense, of what they're looking at. So those are my thoughts on that.
Nice. Yeah, there's a few things that are really interesting about everything you just said. One of the things regarding mugwort is it looks like it's being used in a receptive sort of way to catch the rays, right? And so mugwort in and of itself is a very receptive herb or plant to work with. It's very feminine. So I think of the receptivity of the moon and what have you. And so that's curious. Also, too, just there's this binary thing going on, right? And so you have the sun and the moon. I'm thinking once again about Gemini and the Gemini twins, the good twin and the bad twin, positive or negative, what have you. And then it brought up the trigrams, which is made up of binary elements, right? Either the yin and yang. And I'm not sure how much you guys have ever studied the I Ching, but the I Ching essentially is a binary system, right? And so it's just made up and comprised of yins and yangs, and the trigrams are 3 lines of either yin or yang, and then the hexagrams would be 6 lines of the yin and yang. And there are mirrors, lots of them, which I sent you a slide of, where you have the 8 trigrams around the mirror, right? And this is a pretty common thing out in the East to have that depicted around the mirror. So yeah, all that was very fascinating. I'm into it.
That is really interesting. Hey, I'm going to show you this real quick. This is for you, Mario. You see that discoloration on the bricks right here? Can you see what that is?
I can barely see it, but yeah, what's going on? Okay, I see it much better.
It's bees.
Oh, nice.
And the discoloration is from the years of honey.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's pretty rad.
They're all like, you can tell how deep they're in it, but I don't know what kind these are, but they've been here for years.
Whoa, there they are. Cool, man. Oh. That's awesome.
Yeah. They're saying hi. Anyway, the sun and moon thing reminds me of this. So the thread that I went down is the whole psychomantium thing. So yes, I found this guy. It seems like it was completely off, but it totally fit. There's this Russian scientist so apparently he graduated in like 1925 at 17. He was some genius astrophysicist from Russia, right? His name was Nikolai Kozyrev, I think. And this guy was using, the reason I found him, because he was using curved mirrors, like we were talking about, Romy, and the last one about the radio telescopes, being essentially a mirror, but using curved mirrors. So he used like 2 sets of circular mirrors to make a psychomantium kind of idea. But his experiments, because he was an astrophysicist, his idea was that time itself is what powers the core of each star. And the reason he thought this was because of some telescopic experiments that he'd done where, if you look at a mirror and you look at the stars in the mirror, kind of like the Zoroastrians did, that you saw them with extended time. Like there's already, the stars that happened where a million years have passed or whatever, and we're just now seeing the light. That's the idea, right? Well, he started doing this thing where he would put his telescopes to where he thought the stars will be, and he could get a reaction. And so he started thinking that when we concentrate on these mirrors, because nothing happens without perception, right? And perception is the thing that actually controls everything. So he would get these people and put them in these curved mirror rooms and do these experiments with them. Apparently this guy was arrested in the 30s by the communists. And then later on, a lot of his stuff was proven right about astronomy. And so they let him out, and he became this hero of the Russian space race, because a lot of the stuff he had written about years before were true. And but so what happened was he ended up getting this research program on mirrors for kind of the psychic spy race.
Oh shit!
Between the Americans and the Russians in the 70s, I guess, against.
Yeah.
So at any rate, right, with the psychic spy thing, the Third Eye Spies, remote viewing project, yeah. So apparently these guys were doing fantastic work, and they were getting great results just by doing these mirror scrying, and they were finding future events, but they would more readily go into the past. Do I need to mute this?
It's fine.
Kind of loud.
Nah,
okay.
fine.
So the thing is, because of this, he had this idea that you can time travel, right? And these guys were seeing into the past really well, but it made them all sick, and they all had migraines and stuff like this. But they were demonstrating telekinesis.
Let me ask you this: what type of environment were they setting up for these projects? Did they get into those details, or do you know those details?
Well, okay, the thing I read was pretty vague. I'm just going. I haven't found any books on it. I just found online articles about this guy, and the way. So this might be interesting to you, Mario, since we're always about the poles. So he had set up these spirals that apparently. So he set up this series of curved mirrors. But they would curve into a spiral, apparently. And so I'm thinking, they said spiral, but I'm thinking torsion.
Mm-hmm.
Because later on in the stuff that I was reading about him, he had these ideas about our energy fields being in a spiral, and especially the human heart.
Yes.
As a spiral of energy.
Which is probably why he made the circular mirror psychomantium sort, as opposed to having rectangular mirrors, right? Because he understood the movement of the spirit.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense now, huh? But yeah, telekinesis trend. Oh, they had demonstrated out of body telekinesis, transmitting thought to distance, and they were trying to go into the future, but they would more readily go into the past, which I thought was really interesting. But there's clearly some sort of time dilation. But he was saying that the time itself was what powers everything. But once you get the mirrors focusing the perception, that's what kind of focuses in on the energy. He called it condensation. So, I mean, I think it's worth much more digging, because I didn't find a whole heck of a lot out there about this guy, but I found it really relevant.
You're gonna
Pretty
have
interesting,
to,
huh?
yeah, it's super relevant, super fucking cool, because he tapped into massive amounts of past ancestral line information with that project. And I have my pen here. I'm gonna write his name down. Can you repeat it for me, please?
His name is Nikolai Kozyrev, Kozyrev. I don't know when he was born, but in 1931, I think, was when he was imprisoned. And I think the mirror experiments weren't until the 90s. So I think he was kind of an old man when they did that.
Wow. Well, if you can time travel, I mean, is age even relevant? I mean, he was looking at stars and time in general, and traveling through portals in the liquid mirror dimension. So, you know, he had something figured out, man, and super fascinating. I love the CIA projects of the astral viewing and remote viewing and stuff of the 70s, and the fact that he was doing work and writing in the 30s, and then was working with the Russian space agency, that ties into what America was tapping into over here, and their, mirrored reality with Jack Parsons, and, the homage to Pan and those Thelemites that created NASA. And, you look into these, like the mystic side of the Eastern world, which we're looking into here now, which is why this is relevant. I mean, Russia and China, I mean, it's the red dragon, dude. Like they're very similar. And what's unfortunate about this, unfortunately, is like I wasn't able to find any like pictures of the sun and moon mirror. I'm able to find these old cast bronze mirrors and these old, magic mirrors of ancient China, but the specific set of fascinating technology, which honestly kind of sounds like a still, and it sounds like an alchemical still, because you're talking about they could be talking about gazing into the sun, but they could also be talking about that could be fire in a copper basin to catch condensation. It could be a still in a lab. I don't know, but it's fascinating, and there is so much digging to do. And many hands make light work, and that's what we're all about. We work with a lot of people doing a lot of different things, so it's really beautiful. That's a fantastic weave. I think for the next episode, for the third one, where we dip into more modern stuff, because I wanted to really dig into mirrors and modern science. And Newton, when he brought the birth of Newtonian physics, really was with a mirror. It was with a glass prism, when he picked up a prism, and the whole like Pink Floyd, like light shining through a pyramid and the rainbows coming through the other side. That was from Newton finding this glass prism and basically discovering optics, right? Optics, lenses, refractory mirrors, telescopes and shit. And it all stems from these ancient ancestors doing this deep work. And I think if we really want to meditate with mirrors, and if you're already a highly intuitive person, I think you might be able to really tap into the Akashic record of the collective consciousness by doing these types of practices. I mean, I don't see why not.
Yeah, no, I totally hear you. And great points from both of you guys. Stars came up a couple of times. Did you guys by chance check out the Latin word for mirror in the last episode? I can't remember.
No.
This is fascinating. This is a really awesome symbolic reference book that I have. And this is the first sentence from the book regarding mirror. The Latin word for mirror is speculum, right? And it has given us the verb to speculate. And originally, speculation was scanning the sky and the related movements of the stars by means of a mirror, which I thought that was really fascinating. And then he goes on to say the Latin word for star, sidus, has also given us the word consideration, which etymologically means to scan the stars as a whole, which I wasn't even aware of that, but I thought that was fascinating that the first two things they mention within the mirror entry has to do with scanning the stars and studying the stars via a mirror.
That's the
cool.
Foley, and that's so funny too because Gordy just brought up the Zoroaster, stuff about studying the sky in a mirror, like looking at the stars through the mirror. I want to say too, can you repeat the Latin word for mirror again, please?
According to this entry, it's speculum.
So one of the I think Latin words for ghost is specter.
Oh, nice. Right on.
Yeah. So, and that kind of taps into this, like the antiquated transhumanism work that I do, and the study of the antiquated technology,
Yeah.
and the scepter,
Yes.
which is just one word off of specter.
Sure.
And then you got the Latin word for mirror. So that's cool as fuck. Thank you for that. Gordy's back again at the antler tree here. I love that. Oof. Any more goodness for the gravy for the next slide, y'all?
Nah, man, go for it.
All right, we're in it to win it. I think this might be the last one on China here. Many scholars of Chinese philosophy have analyzed the mirror metaphor in the Qin heart mind. Harold Oshima explains for a modern Westerner who regards a mirror as a commonplace looking glass. This metaphor appears quite pedestrian and unexciting until one realizes in that ancient Chinese imagined mirrors to possess broad and mysterious powers. For instance, a mirror can reveal and control demons. The Bapuzi says a Taoist practitioner entering the mountains would suspend a mirror on his back, which was believed to prevent the approach of demons. Compare the European belief that a mirror as a apotropaic towards vampires who supposedly unable to produce a reflection. Sounds like red mercury. Or the Philosopher's Stone, who are supposedly unable to produce a reflection. Oshima says that the Yang Sui burning mirror that miraculously produces fire best illustrates the great sense of mystery surrounding mirrors. Certainly, this mirror symbolized a powerful connection with the greater powers of the heavens, and such as would have served admirably as a model for Qin. For the early Chinese, mirrors were not simply passive reflectors of information. They offered accurate and appropriate responses to whatever became before them. When placed before the sun, the ultimate yang phenomenon in the world, they respond with fire, the pure essence of yang. When placed before the moon, the ultimate yin phenomenon in the world, they respond with water, the pure essence of yin. Thus, mirrors offer a paradigm for proper responsiveness. They reflect the true essence of the ultimate yin and yang, the alpha and the omega of phenomena in the early Chinese cosmology. Aaron Klein says that the early Chinese attributed mirrors to have a mysterious power and a great religious significance. The ceremonial bronze, Fusui and Youngsui mirrors, that's the sun and the moon mirrors, were seen as active, responsive objects because they could be used to produce fire and water, 2 of the 5 phases. When placed outside, the concave mirrors focused sunlight to produce fire, while bronze mirrors gathered condensation in the light of the moon. But it was not simply the fact that the mirrors had the power to gather or produce that made them objects of religious significance in ancient China. It was that they produced water and fire that were thought to be the pure essences of yin and yang, respectively. that the fact that the mirrors appeared to draw these substances from the sun and the moon reinforced their cosmological power, and that was already associated with them.
Nice. This is fascinating. So really what I'm picking up with all this stuff is the mirror really is a true gateway or portal in that it's receptive and projective. You know what I mean? It's the complete package.
Yeah.
It's the yin and yang. It's receptive with the light and it projects the light. It's all of it. So that's interesting. And I have here highlighted in the same book, the mirror is even called the symbol of symbolism itself, which I think is fascinating. Yeah, I was like, whoa, that really sums it up nicely. But as you were saying that the yin yang component, receptive projectivity, projectivity, that makes a lot of sense, dude. Very, very interesting. Thank you for sharing all this stuff. It's really cool.
Of course. Yeah, something else with this too is, you know, last night we were doing this Stranger Things demystify, the occult, and you know, it's fucking deep. I mean, the show goes really hard, honestly. It goes really hard. The Duffer Brothers are twins, right? And they are making this mirrored reality TV show about an MK Ultra type of, you know, trauma-based mind control to rip a portal in time and space to enter into this other realm dimension. And you know, there's I did a bunch of gematria for a lot of the words that were repeated through the episode. Like once I heard one word get repeated 3 times in a matter of like 10 seconds, I was like, oh, okay. So every time a word's repeated, these, you know, twice or 3 times, these are words. And there was a whole script. It was a script. And I was like, these guys are just making an algorithmic script based on the numerical value, the Kabbalistic value of these words. I think that like when you get high up into initiatory spot on the silver screen, that is Hollywood, you know, you can basically just have a mission or a goal, dramatically speaking, and kind of use the words that have the numerical value and implement them into some sort of algorithmic code. I think that's how easy it is for them to create scripts now, because it's not like they're writing, you know, complicated Shakespearean, you know, words, right? They're really basic scripts with fantastic theatrics going on. Like honestly, they're masters at their work. But the point I'm getting at here, this long-winded whatever the fuck I'm talking about, is that there's a lot of 9 symbolism. All these words broke down to the Pythagorean 9, right? When you break it down, like you can have, you know, it equals 154, you know, or 109 or what have you in reverse ordinal or simple gematria or septenary or whatever. Then they reduce down to the Pythagorean, which to me makes the most sense, because since, you know, the birth of number and symbolism came from the man Pythagoras himself. So when I started seeing all the 9s, I was like, oh, weird. And they broke up the first part of the series of the 4th episode, or the 4th season, sorry, into 7 and then into 2. That's 9 episodes in total. And it's going to be released in July, the last 2 episodes, and it'll be the finale. So there's Cancerian stuff going on there. I'm not the astrologist or the symbolic zodiacal guy, but I'm just kind of curious because, you know, I know Gemini are twins, right? And there's the pillars there, but isn't the 6-9 symbolism of Cancer kind of resemblant of pillars and mirror imagery as well?
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it looks like the yin yang symbol, right? Even. And so I just imagine it spinning almost kind of like the yin yang symbol, almost like begs to be spun. And are you aware of the number? And they 6-9, right? So are you aware of 9 and how it returns to itself mathematically? So it's really interesting. So this is like one of my favorite little things to geek out on. 9 relates to the Hermit card, and the Hermit returns to self, right? That's the whole entire thing. It's the number 9 card, and the Hermit looks like he's even kind of like a number 9. You know, he's hunched over. But 9, when you multiply it by any number, the digits always reduce back to 9. So 9 plus 9 is 18. 1 plus 8 is 9. 3 times 9 is 27. That's 9. Then 36, 45, etc. It goes all the way up it's going to be any interval of 9 reduces back to 9. And then even if you have it, so half of 9 is 4.5. That's 9. Half of 4.5 is 2.25. That's also 9. So 9 has this really interesting thing where it's almost kind of a mirror-y number because it always returns back to self, which I think is really interesting.
I have a question on that because I'm trying to remember math. Aren't 9 multiples, like, don't they actually begin to mirror when they get to high enough multiplication? Like the numbers actually start to reverse from what they were previously.
That's interesting. I'm not aware of that, but that would be fascinating if they did.
I think it's 9, but
Cool.
Somebody please double check me on that because it was like there were a few things that could help me remember multiplication, and I think that was one of them.
Nice. I'll look into that. That's very interesting.
Yeah, it's just it's nuts to me. I started noticing it, and I was like, okay, so how much of this script writing, right? These theatrics, this silver screen homage, this tapping into celestial knowledge, and or is it all just bullshit? Like, are they just writing this script, about this, this Montauk project, of trauma-based mind control, or are they trying to relay a message?
Good question, dude. To me, it almost feels like they pick and choose what shows or movies they go all in on now. And I don't know what their criteria is or what have you, but I believe you that they went all in because they still save a lot of that stuff for programming purposes and whatnot. But it seems like the overall agenda has changed. I'm not sure what's going on in Hollywood anymore. Things are very different than when we grew up and stuff with media and what have you. Because now we have video games and all sorts of other things going on now.
Yeah. Anybody else? We good?
Yeah, really quick with that. Since we are talking about mirrors and math,
Yes.
I think this is where we have to leave room for paradox, because yes, they're totally doing this independently on their own. And also, yes, they are totally running on matrix numbers right now on how they are programmed from nature. So it's both. It is absolutely both. Everything, it's not nature versus nurture, it's nature and nurture. So they're functioning the way that they're meant to, but they're also functioning the way that they have fractaled out from that. So I think it's absolutely both, because that's how that mirror reality works. That's what we're getting into, is that nitty gritty, where the reflection of the numbers. Like, it's kind of cool to see the coding at work.
I totally dig it, and you're so right, because it's like, I think once, if you guys do get a chance to watch it, I mean, I do highly recommend it. I'm not a guy who just sits around and watches fucking TV all day, right? Like, we do work, but sometimes it is kind of nice just to sit there. But when you have these types of mindsets, you can't just sit there and watch it. You're watching these flicks and you're being like, what the fuck is really going on, dude? They just laid it down thick. And this one in specific, and it's like, you're not going to just sprinkle in a little bit of cinnamon, you're going to make the whole flavor resemble and amplify that specific ingredient. And that's why I feel like they really went hard. I mean, everything is above so below from the beginning of that. And I'm not even really trying to get into this. This is a whole breakdown on its own, but I just wanted to let people know that there is mirror imagery in that show. And that's another thing, is it just came out. And Gordy and Chance and those guys, they're doing the Doctor Strange and Moon Knight, which are they both have mirrorverse. They both have this really strange thing with mirrors. And so, in Hollywood has been commonly known as the silver screen. And it goes on and it goes on. So but that's for the next episode. Today we are focusing on the ancient. And last time, so we're done with ancient Asia. If anybody has anything else to touch on the Eastern Asian mystics, please drop it now.
Just real quick regarding the silver screen, I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but there's a slight reflective silver material that they actually put on the screen itself. And so the screen itself is kind of like a mirror. It's like a gigantic mirror. It's like a fabric mirror. And the reason why they do that is because then the colors and the light really pops off the screen. So that's kind of interesting. in of
and
itself, right?
it's so
Which
cool.
is also interesting too. Those magic mirrors were the magic mirrors were mercury, right? And the ancient mirrors were essentially made of mercury. Like that was up until just very recently. I think most mirrors had mercury in it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And that's it's nuts. I mean, it's nuts because mercury's toxic, right? They tell us that and not to use mercury and to play with it. And I think that's true. But, we talked about this in the last episode that, there was heavy pools of mercury in the basins of these pyramids in both China and ancient Mexico. And then I got into a deeper rabbit hole by looking into the Santeria religion, the religion of Santeria, which is heavy. They have mercury as a part of their ritualistic use as well. And mercury is a mirror, mercury is a messenger, and a mirror is a messenger as well, right? The mirror is a messenger. It's a message to yourself. It's a message. It's a portal. It's all these things. And yeah, it's deep. We're gonna go into that. And what I wanted to show you guys, or what I hope you guys can pick up from this, is following with this Mesoamerica stuff we're about to get into, how much it reflects the ancient Chinese philosophies as well. My question is were they just on the same wavelength? This is just how people were back in the day. They just had a lot of these same religious beliefs, or who was the originator of it? Where did they come from? But the Mesoamerican stuff goes really deep with mirrors. I mean, if anybody was about mirrors, it was ancient Mesoamerica, guys. This is like, you can't find a lot like the symbolism philosophically speaking in ancient Islam. They have mirrors, but it's all about their religion and mirroring the Quran and stuff like that. Ancient China, yeah, we found the fire in the sun mirror, but you find some evidence. In Mesoamerica, you find fucking loads of evidence for mirrors. So these guys were tapped in. And in the last episode, we talked about Tezcatlipoca, who was the god of smoke and mirrors. And one of my biggest fascinations in life is the conquistadorian takeover, not with the fascination of the Europeans, obviously, but the fascination of the culture that was wiped out, or the culture that transcended, because that's a mystery all on its own. If we'll ever figure it out in our lifetime, it is one of my goals to dig as deep as possible to find the true mysteries of what happened to this amazing culture, because it's so deep and they're so tapped in and they were so into mirrors that I think that they may have vaporized into the spirit realm and have ascended, or they've gone underneath. So, this is a really sweet art piece of an iteration of Tezcatlipoca, who is the god of the mirror, the god of the smoke and the mirrors, the jaguar god. And they wore mirrors all over their body. They wore them all over. They wore headdresses on their backs, and he famously wore one on his chest. Now, when the Europeans came over, they basically abolished this dark god. Now, that was an issue because this culture highly regarded this god because they knew about the shadows. They knew that they needed to work with the shadows in order to have balance in their culture and their community. But these monotheistic Christians came over and we're like, no. You guys have a lot of great stuff going on. The sun worship, all about that. This dark worship, I don't know about that. You're going to have to. So they had to do it in the shadows. They had to worship the shadows in the shadows. They still highly regarded Tezcatlipoca, but they had to do it in the shadows, unfortunately. But that may have meant that it got even exemplified even more, magnified, and mirrored even more. So they were creating some portals, and let's go into it. So here's another really great version of Tezcatlipoca, when you look at these old Mayan art pieces, and this is the mirror, the circle here, you know, it's not reflective anything. I mean, it's kind of that, you know, it's an orange or gold color, but that's where he would wear his mirror on his chest, right there, right where his heart is. Interesting, right?
Yes, exactly right. There's a lot of heart mirror symbolism out there, which is interesting.
Oh, I didn't get too
Yeah.
much into that.
Yeah. This is cool, man. I'm really stoked for this section. You got me all hyped up over here.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, let's do it. Okay. So, mirrors worn at the small of the back. In costume, the largest and most complex of the circular medallions tends to be the back mirror. It occurs as part of the belt assemblages and frequently as a pendant tassel of cloth, feathers, or tails. It is quite clear that this device is an early classic form of the post-classic Tezcatli. Oh gosh. Tezcatlipoca, a mirror worn at the small of the back. And art of the post-classic highland of Mexico, there are innumerable examples of back mirrors. Some of the finest examples appear with the early post-classic Toltec figures. Long ago, Sealer 1902-1923 interpreted these back elements as mirrors of the Chichen Itza. Later excavations at Tula and Chichen Itza provided striking confirmation of this identification. The large Atlantean warrior columns unearthed by George Acosta at Tula each wear the back device he rendered at the smoking serpents within the four radiating quadrants. Actual mirrors of this design have been excavated at Chichen Itza. Here, here four Itzenchoca turquoise or fire serpents appear in the turquoise rim encircling the central pyrite mosaic. Numerous depictions of the back mirrors occur in classic Maya art, often on pieces exhibiting strong Teotihuacan influence. The Teotihuacan warrior figures on the sides of Tikal Stela provide two views of an early classic back mirror, whereas the left figure displays the mirror on the face and within encircling the rim. Opposing the figure provides the view of the back mirror. The pair of a short vertical line near the edges of the disc probably depicts the holes drilled for suspension, now held by the lashes of the cord. Yet another early classic Tikal piece is the two-part effigy in Sario, contains the excellent representation of a back mirror, complete with a pendant tassel. Whoop. Here we go. So this is one of the classic obsidian mirrors. I mean, that's as black as black gets. It literally looks like a portal.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I can't remember. Did you guys talk about John Dee's mirror last time?
That I have that at the end.
Okay.
At the very end, because it's such a crazy segue story. But you know that story, dude. It is it's part of this whole like conquistadorian conundrum, you know,
Sure.
in the Western occultic, Western esoteric, you know, conundrum, because we're all drooling over alchemy and esotericism and occultism, but you know, they just fucking stole it, man. You know, it's all syncretism. It's religious syncretism, in my opinion, but I still study it and I love it. This is so dark that it reminds me of like those black dots that they throw in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, you know, which is like a portal, I guess.
Holes.
Yeah. Like, look how, dude, like this thing looks like it just like goes to nowhere or to everywhere. So here's some interpretations of mirrors on the headdresses. What is it? What do you guys take about this kind of the art here?
You know, there's Native American Plains Indians who put mirrors on the headdresses right here too when they're doing fancy dancing. I've seen that at powwows. I don't know the symbology. It just reminded me when you said that they had mirrors. I remember seeing them at powwows during fancy dance competitions and stuff like that. Getting windy out here.
Hey-o.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting. Right. It reminds me of the third eye thing and the pineal gland. And when I think of that now, the third eye, I really look at the North Star or Polaris as being kind of an external representation of that. And so I'm seeing a lot of kind of like with our Oz episode, lots of sacred center, northern pole star symbolism with mirror stuff that we'll get into. But
Yo.
that's what it reminds me of.
Dude, nice. Yeah, like my first interpretation was the Sekhet or the Egyptian headdresses with the snake coming out, the Kundalini snake, because you know, and later I think there's some art I have here where they show like serpents coming out of mirrors. Oh,
Nice. That's interesting.
So, which ties into like, okay, we separate these things, right? Like ancient Asia and Mesoamerica and ancient Egypt, but could very well all been very unanimous. But who am I to say? Mirrors worn upon the chest, along with serving as back devices, circular mirrors are frequently worn on the chest of Teotihuacan figures. At times, they are supplied with a flanking pair of spools observed on many Teotihuacan back mirrors, thereby firmly identifying them as such. Breast mirrors with two rim flares are extremely common in Teotihuacan figurines. In a recent publication, Von Winning considers this device El pectoral con dos bolitos de barro to be specific trait of one figurine type. Kidder, Jennings, and Shook note that the early classic tombs of Kalumanjuyu, large mirrors were often placed on the breast of the deceased in the religion of the Escalinta. I'm butchering all these words. I'm sorry. Guatemala mirrors are a similar scale, often appear on the chest of incensario figurines. Here, they also occur with the flanking spools on the mirror rim. In a great many examples, the Escalinta and Teotihuacan, the mirror's face occupied by forms of the reptile eye glyph, a sign that is still not fully understood. That's
nice. The chest thing, just real quick,
Yes.
regarding the heart. When I was looking into the mirror symbolism thing, this came up multiple times. And the chest, the heart, you're dealing with the emotions. In the tarot, you're dealing with the cups. And so therefore you're dealing with water. And so I think that there has to be some sort of connection there. And then also kind of what Gordy said earlier about the torsion element with the heart and whatnot, I think is appropriate too to bring up.
Okay, we got to stew on that for a little bit, but tie all that in here maybe towards the end, because
sure,
that's facts. Like, yeah, I just got a big visual when you said that. So
nice.
Definitely cool. Something there. I'm still working on my tarot symbolism, and understanding that. So I'm a noob with all that. Ever basically since really been delving in with all of you beautiful, amazing humans. So thank you for that. I feel always so fucking honored to be part of the spiders and all that stuff. So it's really great.
Can I throw something in really quick about that?
Yes, ma'am.
I know you want to dig into some of that a little bit later, but I think what Mario said is interesting about the heart and the water.
Yeah.
And how we were just talking about water being related to the moon.
Yes.
It says, according to Saunders, the Mesoamerican identification of mirrors with eyes may derive from the strongly reflective quality of jaguar eyes. Jaguar is the shaman symbol.
Mm-hmm.
And so that would be more attributed to, the feminine side, at least the way that we understand it. So, there's this idea of jaguar warriors, these like warrior priest type of thing. So this very, it sounds like it's protecting the heart. It's protecting that reflection very specifically, from whatever entities or even just reflecting back that light. It's a place of power. So you're going to want to bounce things away from it.
I love that, dude. That's so fucking cool. Exactly. Because just to touch on the jaguar thing, Tezcatlipoca who was the smoke and mirrors god, right? Who basically he was the one that brought the heart mirror. He is also a jaguar, depicted as a jaguar god.
Yeah, that is really fascinating. And then, with the one on the third eye, if you're in the sun, because I mean, most of these headdresses you will probably wear in the sun if there's a ceremony or ritual. Maybe you wear one at night. So it's going to reflect all that light and you're going to look like a star, right? Because people are that's going to be eye catching no matter where you are. It's going to reflect and hit somebody in the face. So, I think that's interesting too for mirroring the sky. You're not only saying, you're saying I'm a star. You're acknowledging your divine origin by doing that, in a really fun and beautiful way. I think, through these rituals. They always sound very solemn, and there is that aspect, but I think there is some joy and some beauty in this too.
Yes, I'm just soaking all that in. Yeah, there really is a lot to take away with the heart mirror, the back mirror, the headdress. I think I probably should have put the headdress right before this slide. I think that's maybe what I meant to do. Anyways, this is the mirror as an eye. Cecilia Klein has suggested that Teotihuacan and in the later iconography of central Mexico, the ringed eyes found on Tlaloc and other deities may refer to mirrors and support Klein city's abundant evidence that the Aztec identified mirrors with eyes, which I think we dug into a little bit on the last episode. Thus, in Book 10 of the Florentine Codex, both the eye and the pupil are described as the Tetzcatl, or mirror. The association of mirrors with eyes is widespread in Mesoamerica. In contemporary Tzotzil Maya, one word for pupil or eye is nen sat. Nen meaning mirror and sat meaning eye. Cool. Or face. Nicholas Saunders notes that the reflective mirror stones were used to represent eyes in Olmec Maya, Teotihuacan, and Aztec sculpture. According to Saunders in 1988, the Mesoamerican identification of mirrors with eyes may derive from the strongly reflective quality of jaguar eyes. At Teotihuacan, mirrors were strongly identified with eyes. Along the Teotihuacan, use of pyrite, mica, obsidian are frequently used in the Teotihuacan sculpture to represent the shining pupil. George Kubler in 1967 notes that eyes in Teotihuacan iconography represent shining brilliance. Thus, they are commonly found in streams and other bodies of water. On one Teotihuacan style mirror, back excavated at Camina Le Juyu, a series of eyes encircles the rim. Human eyes are also used to represent the gleaming mirror face. Thus, the shining center of both the headdress and the breast mirrors can be replaced with a single large eye. The Teotihuacan identification of mirrors with eyes is so widespread that they may even be rendered in the form of an eye, lenticular but with the raised rim and radiating feathers found with mirrors.
Nice. That makes perfect sense. The eye thing. Absolutely. I think it's interesting too, mirror, eye, and then face. That's very curious. So I'll probably circle back around to that before we're all said and done here.
Nice.
Yeah.
Here's some art. Here, you guys, this is that piece I was talking about with like the serpent. It's actually looks like a jaguar, actually, kind of, huh? Coming out of the mirror.
Very cool. Yeah.
I'm not sure. And here's another mirror too, when they're talking about with like the rim of the mirror. So this is kind of showing the yin and the yang of the mirror. You know, you're looking into the mirror, and this is coming out of the mirror. That Ouroboros effect, that full Here we go. Pre-Hispanic representations of mirrors as passageways. Number A, classic Maya depiction of burning petaled mirrors containing human figures. Note hook-snouted serpents. Detail of Caracol stela. After beats and some other white people. Proto-classic serpent emerging out of notched mirror. Detail of an altar 14. Wow, it's fucking nuts.
It is. I love this kind of artwork, dude. It's fascinating.
It's so deep. It's like insane. There's this massive amount of symbolism in it, and it's like lost in antiquity, but kind of recorded. But it was recorded by Europeans mainly, and I mean, that's the whole Florentine Codex and all this shit. Like I said, it's the conquistadorian conundrum,
Yeah.
like, great, you guys went and recorded everything, but you also basically stole everything and murdered this mass. Like, I don't even want to get into it, but
Also, I just have to say the Mayans get style points for their artistry, and my understanding is that they were actually encouraged. It kind of reminds me of like almost like tagging or something, to develop your own style. So even though you were creating icons that were reflective of the language and communicating certain ideas and whatever, they were encouraged to develop their own style within that framework, which I think is fascinating.
I've seen that. I don't know what I was watching, but they were looking at different plaques with names on them, and they'd see the same symbol but slight variations.
Yes, totally.
And it's so cool that they did that, because you look at
Agreed.
Egyptian art and they're like, you must draw this art exactly the same way forever.
Right,
and
right.
Total opposite. They're like, yeah, make it your own.
Yeah.
As long as we can read it.
I'm into it. I think it's so rad.
Yeah, it's cool.
it's definitely the most psychedelic art of all of the ancient cultures. I mean, talk about tripped the fuck out. Like, I think a lot of mainstream visual artists get a lot of influence from this. And, when we talk about the collective consciousness and tapping into the collective consciousness, right? If the earth is contained, through its hydrosphere, through its hydromantic type of containment of information, if the collective consciousness is absorbed within the earth's water, right? Water vapor, water liquid, water gas, water solid, whatever, information is stored in there through our consciousness connecting with earth, then the collective consciousness could, in theory, be tapped into, when you're in a meditative state, right? I think that's kind of like the whole point of that. And when you look at these cultures that were so tapped into earth and so tapped into their spirit, and they were tapped into concepts like alchemy and making mirrors and tying their spirit into the mirrors, then when you have modern artists that are just trying to vibe out and paint, and they're just tapping in and they're doing their thing, they're getting downloads of ancient celestial information potentially, and like, that's just what I take away from that, because their art, like you said, dude, is like style points like a motherfucker. G. Gordy.
Yes, I wholeheartedly agree.
You back in your studio, man?
Hey, yeah. I was just gonna mention that the Aztec art and all that South American art, that's so rad. You can totally see how they got a lot of superhero costumes from those ideas.
Yep.
It's totally lifted, and with good reason. It's because it's cool, and it taps into that kind of ancient thing that we kind of all know but don't know consciously,
Mm-hmm.
and I think the whole mirror thing is about tapping into ourselves. That's what you do. That's what the psychomantium thing is about, is getting in yourself, doing that harsh introspective thing. Because I mean, if this guy Kozyrev is right, then everything happens because of perception, and all you have is the perception, you're actually creating a reality out of thin air, right? I mean, in theory, that's just where my mind's going. But anyway, cool, very fun.
I totally dig that. I think there is the past that is like kind of templated a lot of existence, but there is still the future to be molded and to be created, and it's just an endless void. Like it's that's where like this I kind of like play around with the idea of simulation theory, right? Like I think that for the when people say, "Oh, is this all a simulation or what, man?" I'm like, yeah, but it's a lot more complicated than that, like there is a cosmic code and there is an algorithmic situation happening. And you can code your reality and your future and dig into the past and shit, you know what I mean? But it's a lot more complicated. But that being said, Tetzcatlipoca, who is a god that, we went into on the last one and not so much on this one. A little bit we did, but he is really important, or maybe she is, because Tetzcatlipoca was never really like, it was a little bit touched on as maybe being masculine, but what you're saying earlier about the jaguar kind of having this feminine vibe, Rachel, one of the main reasons that it could be feminine is because the monotheistic, Christians that loved, sucking each other's dicks, like they didn't really like appreciate women, as we know that a lot of these indigenous cultures did. And so like when they cast out Tetzcatlipoca because it was a dark deity, potentially creatrix vibes going on there and intimidating to white men, that could be, that's just my intuition and just a, obviously speculation, but yeah. Anyways, so this next series here of slides is from this article of the most recent look at the feathered serpent temple in Teotihuacan, the ancient city that keeps getting brought up a lot, where they found the mercury underground. And so I was able to find this new article that I wasn't able to find before, and they did a new dig on it, and it's really cool. I kind of just took the highlights of it, but here we go. In designing Teotihuacan, the city's architects had arranged the major monuments on a north-south axis, with the so-called Avenue of the Dead linking the largest structure, the Temple of the Sun, with the Ciudad de Dela, the southeasterly courtyard that housed the Temple of the Plumed Serpent, potentially Hermes or, Quetzalcoatl. Gomez knew that the archaeologists had previously discovered a narrow tunnel underneath the Temple of the Sun. He theorized that he was now looking at a kind of mirror tunnel leading to a subterranean chamber beneath the Temple of the Plumed Serpent. If he was correct, it would find of stunning proportions, the type of achievement that can make a career. 50 feet in, we stopped at a small inlet carved in the wall. Not long before, Gomez and his colleagues had discovered traces of mercury in the tunnel, which Gomez believed served as symbolic representations of water, as well as the mineral pyrite, which was embedded in the rock by hand. In semi-darkness, Gomez explained, the shards of pyrite emit a throbbing metallic glow. To demonstrate, he unscrewed the nearest light bulb. The pyrite came to life like a distant galaxy. It was possible, in that moment, to imagine what the tunnel's designers may have felt more than 1,000 years ago, 40 feet underground. They'd replicate the experience of standing amid the stars. I gotta minimize that. If Gomez suggested it was true that the layout of the city proper was meant to stand in for the universe and its creation, might the tunnel beneath the temple devoted to an all-encompassing aqueous past represent a future outside of time, an underworld, or a world before? Not the world of the living, but of the dead? Up above, there was a temple of the sun and eternal day. Down below, the stars, not of this earth, and the deepest night. I followed Gomez down a short ramp into a cross-shaped chamber directly under the heart of the temple of the plumed serpent. 4 archaeologists were kneeling in the dirt, brushes and thin blade trowels in hand. A nearby boombox blared Lady Gaga. Gomez told me that he had not been prepared for the sheer diversity of the objects he encountered in the farthermost reaches of the tunnel. Necklaces with a string intact, boxes of beetle wings, jaguar bones, balls of amber, and perhaps the most intriguingly, a pair of finely carved black stone statues, each facing the wall opposite of the entryway. For Gomez, the subchambers, whether they are filled with more ritual relics or remains or something entirely unexpected, might be best understood as a symbolic tomb, a final resting place for the city's founders of gods and men. A few months after leaving Mexico, I checked with Gomez. He was only marginally closer to uncovering the chambers beneath the end of the tunnel. His archaeologists were literally often working with toothbrushes, so as to not damage whatever lay beneath. Regardless of what he found at the end of the tunnel, once his excavation was complete, he promised me he'd be satisfied. The number of artifacts we'd uncovered, he said, pausing, you could spend a whole career evaluating the contents. So that was that. It's a bigger piece, and I didn't know how wordy this whole thing was going to be, so I only highlighted some of it. But
that was great, dude.
Yeah, what do you guys think? Just take it away.
Go for it,
awesome.
Rachel. If I saw that you unmuted, so go for it.
Oh, I was just waiting. No, I like that a lot. I like that I think there's actually a lot to say on what they're mirroring in a lot of their stories and a lot of their art. I think taking it cosmic is scratching the surface. Again, I see parallels with Northern cosmology and Ymir making the world out of something, and even, the realm of the dead. You talk about the hero twins, and when they go to the realm of the dead, there's, the realms of the evil lords are functions of your body. You're passing through bile, you're passing through the digestive system eventually to be where. So you're through the disease, through it's interesting to me that those are mirrors, in a sense. So their understanding of origins and the reflection of the world is very fascinating.
Definitely. Yeah. So to me, the thing I took away from that, this north-south axis with this underground tunnel, I'm guessing that they were headed towards the north, that the dead were headed towards the north, because there's a lot of groups that have death rite rituals, ascension rituals that are completely related to northern symbolism. And so when you're talking about the north, you're talking about the North Pole, you're talking about the Axis Mundi, you're talking about the post, you're talking about the pillar. This is the Pillar of Hermes, which is also obviously related to Mercury itself. And so Mercury, Hermes, Thoth goes up and down this pole, right? And so this is how he travels between worlds, is that phallic pole is the bridge between worlds. So to me, I think they had an understanding of this sacred center of this northern polar axis mundi, and that they were trying to give their ancestors or the people who had just passed, an axis way to get towards the north. And when you look at other symbols from this part of the world too, I think that a lot of it is actually revolving around this sacred center northern thing. This is my perspective on most things, so people shouldn't be surprised that this is going to be my angle, but it continues to add up and it continues to make sense. That this is really this idea of a sacred center is really what it's been all about for a lot of these cultures for a very, very long time. And so just briefly, real quick, I just got my Aztec sunstone.
Ooh.
So my parents gave me this, and so I've had it for a while. And if you notice, right, there's a face right in the middle, right, of the sunstone, and everything emanates from this sacred center location, right?
With the 4 points even too, and
oh yeah, it's all there. It's all encoded. It reminds me of wheel symbolism and all sorts of other things. But during your first presentation, the thing that I kept on noticing was this like bulb in the center of a lot of the Eastern mirrors. And there's two things going on with that bulb. One, it's a practical thing because that's where they would put the string through so they can hang it from a ceiling or hang it from something. And then my hunch was that this is actually a reference to the sacred center. And I was really happy to see, and kind of surprised actually, that one of my books said as much as well. So this is an illustrated encyclopedia of traditional symbols by J.C. Cooper. He actually, under his mirror section, he has one of those mirrors right there, and you see the bulb, and you see how there's the square and the 4 points, kind of like what you're mentioning. In this particular example, I sent you a slide that we can look at later if you want. But underneath this image, he says, on the back of this Chinese Han period mirror, the central boss, which is that bulby part, the axis of the universe balances the tension between the surrounding circle, the heavens and the true world, and the outer square, the earth, realm of appearances and reflections. So he considers that central bulb on the back of the mirror to represent the axis of the universe. And when we die, that's where we go to. And that's what's at the north, in my opinion.
Wow.
It's the axis of the world and of the universe.
Two questions. One, is that the Globus Cruciger on the front of the book?
Is that what that is?
Oh, no. It kind of almost looks like the Globus Cruciger is like the classic ball with a cross on top.
Oh, yeah. Actually, it looks very similar to that.
Yeah.
To me, it looks like a reversed Venus symbol. It's almost like Venus reverse, right?
Yes. Yeah.
The holy hand grenade.
The what?
The holy hand grenade.
Oh.
The holy hand grenade. Yeah. Totally.
What do you think is inside of that? Do you guys have any interpretations of what is inside the Globus Cruciger?
I don't know.
It's full of something, man.
Good question.
Yeah. It's one of my other life goals to figure that out. That's a great book, by the way. Having physical copies of books to look in, like I have a lot of books and none of them have anything about mirrors, and it's like fucking ridiculous. So I would love to have a book that has mirrors in it. And the symbolic book, of course, you have that. Sir Symbolic Studies over here. The other question is in that they brought up, okay, they're a mirror tunnel, right? They just glazed over that and said that real quick without any further excavation on what they meant by that at all, right? They just said mirror tunnel, and then they just went on with the article. The other thing is, and this is very common, especially in temples, but the cross, like the cross-shaped hallways that they talked about, which is kind of what you were just saying. You have a central point and you have the cross there at the very base of this pyramid, and you have the sacred center and the four emanating main directions from that. And you see this common theme all throughout these different cultures, but now we're talking about Mesoamerica and the Mayans, but going underground and having ascension programs underneath the ground. So is the sacred center the center of the earth, and to travel to the north from that?
I think there's a few ways of looking at it. My understanding is, yes, that's one way, absolutely, that I think it's done, or how people have perceived it. But then also, when you are building like a pyramid, or you have a culture that's very much rooted and grounded, they're going to have a sacred center location that is probably going to be identified with some sort of temple or pyramid. A lot of times it's something phallic, sometimes it's a mound, and they consider that to be the sacred center of their region, of their people. So that is almost like an axis way towards the larger, greater sacred center, in my opinion. The same way our heart and going within is another axis way to going to the sacred center. So there's lots of different metaphors at play when you talk about this stuff.
Yeah, and just to be a little pragmatic, because there are universal truths being reflected all over the place, there are probably mathematical and architecturally sound reasons for a lot of this. It is very symbolic, but it's also incredibly practical
Yeah.
for the structure and what they're doing, which I think is an amazing reflection, because that can happen subconsciously as much as consciously. I do think it's cool as far as, the tunnel itself being kind of a mirror, because it's amazing that they're like, well, it's going to be dark in here. How could we see? Well, the stars give off light in the dark. So if we can replicate the stars, we are familiar. Our eyes are adjusted to that, right? We understand moonlight. We understand starlight. That would not be a difficult thing to walk through. Firelight would be very different. Vibration, and you have to maintain it. There's a lot of different factors. That's an amazing intelligent design reflection. But going back to the sacred center, when we have this pole, there's a bunch of poles running around, and it's us. Like, essentially, we're the sacred center everywhere we go. So it's going to be reflected above and it's going to be reflected below.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what that is. The temple, the person, we're that sacred center. And so as much as we want to look for something up above, like the sun or the moon, we're recognizing those poles, but the energy that keeps them together, in a binary star system, something has to keep those things together.
Yeah.
And it's us.
We're people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, that's
People.
exactly right. 100%. And that's always the thing. It's whenever I talk about sacred center, anything, the acknowledgement of self and us being a reflection of that, I think is crucial in understanding and just reflecting on.
Mm-hmm. But also not human centric at the same time, right? Like being centric of the self and understanding the importance, but not being like everything is revolving specifically around human. Or maybe it is. Yeah, I don't know. That's a conundrum I have often, because I'm like, I just, I'm like, I love all animals and they're all reflective of, so many things, but also like, there's a narcissist. I try just not to be too narcissist, and I'm like, not everything is human centric, but then at other times I'm like, it might be. I mean,
You know what?
I don't know.
I mean, in my opinion, it's like the quantum reality of things, the fractal reality of things. Every single element or component in this reality is an emanation and reflection of the sacred center. Everything. There's
Mhm.
nothing that's not, which is what mirror symbolism truly is all about, is that it's a reflection of the sacred center, because everything is just a reflection of it, So we live in a mirror reality, which I think in a way kind of, maybe that's the ancient way of explaining the fractal understanding that we have now, or the quantum understanding that we have now, is to use mirrors as the appropriate metaphor, Just
That's
think
beautiful.
That
Yeah,
is
a lot of
beautiful.
these cultures would talk about the people, like, very specifically, and that's why we have this idea of being sons and daughters of the universe, to keep you humble. It's not to put you down and downgrade what you are, because you, as that center, you're able to be the expression of all. You're able to love nature, you're able to enjoy it, you're able to nurture and care for it as much as you're able to utterly destroy it. So there is, I think, if we're struggling with narcissism, at some point sit there and really be proud of yourself for being what you are, and eat it up and enjoy it. And then remember that it's all connected. And maybe if you need to see yourself as a child of God, then that's what you need to do to keep that humility. But that's what a lot of these shamans that I'm reading from these areas essentially come down to. They're like, I am no higher or lower than anything. And it's okay to acknowledge it. And it's okay to feel proud of that, because we're all the same. It's all beautiful and connected and awesome.
To touch up on the researcher that Gordy brought up earlier, where he was setting up this these, I don't know if I could call it, if it was, I don't know, it's necessarily right to call it a psychomantium, but he was setting up this mirror research stuff and setting it up in this cylindrical way, in this spiral way, right? And so it was spiraling out, and which is a very old understanding of how the spirit moves. And even like the smoke right here, smoke and mirrors, the smoke is the spirit, and the spirit moves in the waves, in the circles, in the spirals. And so what I'm getting at is like, I think these pyramids a lot of times is, it's not necessarily standing straight up and angular. It's concave in the sense that, like, if it were shooting a toroid out of the top of the pyramid, it would make a concave spherical like shape. And then that would thus be spiraling. And so sacred center spiraling out from the sacred center, using like the 4 points as like the, to keep it even and to keep it that shape, and then to cone up from that. So 4 points, sacred center, cone, you have the pyramid, and then you round it all off. And then that's this type of like shape that you get. That's kind of a visual I was having there.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm into it, man.
Yeah, that if you guys have watched the our episodes on the Moon Night, one of the last episode that we did, I think it's the second episode, and we're going to do 3, I think on Thursday, but that one takes place. So a werewolf gets essentially sacrificed on a Masonic tracing board, essentially, it's a round. Now that you're saying it, you're describing exactly what it is, Mario. It's a round platform with, of course, the black and white tiles on it, but there's a cone in the center, and the center is not just a cone; it's it looks like the compass, because it comes down to points. But in between the center of the compass is mirrors.
Fucking A.
Wow. Okay. Very interesting.
Yeah. So if you haven't seen that, go watch the second episode of that. It's pretty nuts. You'll love it.
Nice.
Wow. So Mario, this next section is the slides that you sent me, all consecutively in a row. So
okay, cool.
Get ready to do some breaking down, because this is all your stuff.
All right, man. I'm ready.
Here we go.
Cool. All right. So this is a painting by Geoffrey Bosschaert. He was a Dutch painter. He was a badass. He was super prolific. I can't believe how much stuff. I still haven't seen all of his stuff, and I've been a fan of his for years. But what he did in his life was he created a series of 12 paintings that basically are an emanation of the 12 signs from his research and perspective. And he was he was into occultism and alchemy and all sorts of stuff, right? Yeah. And so, I mean, you look at this painting, this is Gemini. And so you look at this and there's a ton going on here. We could spend all day breaking this down, right? But really what it comes down to is this is his representation of the alchemical marriage, or the alchemical wedding, as it's called. It's, this polarity or duality of two figures, two energies, not unlike the Gemini twins, two lovers. This is very much almost like a lover's card, which is ruled by Gemini too, right? And so you've got the twin pillars, you've got all the symbolism, the, two different dragons and the moon and the sun and what have you. But the thing to me that I really wanted to point out is the fact that they are both holding on to a caduceus, and the caduceus has a mirror on top of it.
Oh,
which I think is beautiful symbolism, because what you're really doing is, when you're in a relationship, we're mirrors of everyone, really, honestly. But when you're in a romantic relationship, and that is a thing, you are reflections of each other in so many different ways. And a lot of relationships, a lot of couples would benefit from acknowledging this and understanding this. So before, you get into an argument or what have you, having this awareness really is powerful, is that you are reflections of each other. So, as an example, if you're putting them down, you're basically putting yourself down, sort of thing. It's like that across the board with other people as well, but even more so when you're bonded that way, right? And so to me, the fact that the caduceus, which is a mercurial symbol, the fact that it has a mirror on it is interesting. I've been on the record of saying that I think that when you're looking at the bulb of the caduceus, you're essentially looking at the North Star, and you're looking at that same pole, the axis mundi, the sacred center. So the fact that the mirror is in the same place, I think is fascinating. And then kind of to couple with this image, I'll read a brief entry here in one of my books regarding this older ritual. All right. Okay. So in Iran, Afghanistan, and Pakistan, they still use the mirror of Our Lady Mary when couples first meet. These are couples that are, going to enter into some sort of agreement or relationship. It is hung on the far wall of the room in which the meeting takes place. The couple entering from opposite doors and being expected to look at their mirror images instead of straight at one of another. In doing so, they will meet as if they were in paradise, seeing their faces corrected and not inverted, as in this world. The mirror's image correcting facility becomes a symbol in this context of things seen in their essential reality. So I'm not sure if you got that, but essentially, when this couple, like an arranged situation, when they would meet each other for the first time, they would look at each other through a mirror first instead of looking at each other just straight on, because their belief was that actually this world is inverted, but the mirror world is actually accurate. And so everything here is flipped, but the mirror actually corrects everything. So you're seeing their true image when you're looking in the mirror, which I think is kind of fascinating. And as I was reading that this morning, I was like, okay, I need to bring that up at least when we show the boss chart painting.
It's so good, dude. It's so good. I mean, like you said, there's fucking massive amounts of things to break down of this, and that story was great. Where was that story from?
So this is Dictionary of Symbols, the Penguin Dictionary of Symbols. This is an awesome little book. It's super common. Both of the books I've shown today. If anyone's looking for symbolic references, I can't recommend these two enough.
Wow.
And they're cheap too.
Oh, really? Okay, I'm gonna
Yeah.
definitely probably swoop both of them. The mirror on top of the of the hermetic staff there, I mean, kind of just ties into a lot of the stuff we brought up with the Mesoamerican belief, right? And even what you just brought up in that story with wearing the mirror on the headdress, because we didn't get much context as to when and where these headdresses were worn, but they're worn ceremoniously when you are going to go meet somebody and to do like an exchange. If you have that mirror on your headdress or here, then you're automatically having that type of symbolic exchange right off the bat. I mean, you're showing. I mean, it's crazy. I don't even know what that would be like. You would be infinitely reflecting each other as you're staring at each other into these infinite mirrors. As you're standing in front of each other with these mirrors, you're infinitely reflecting each other within each other's heart and your mind center. Like, nuts.
I mean, this is exactly what Emily Wright was talking about, and the same kind of work that I've been doing with mirrors when you're healing the masculine and the feminine, right? Because in looking at that mirror first, you're allowing yourself to see yourself through their eyes, right? So when you're healing each side of the face, you're looking at it. I'm looking at my masculine from the feminine perspective. I'm looking at my feminine from the masculine perspective. And sometimes you can do both. How does my masculine feel about my masculine? How does my feminine feel about my feminine? And really looking at yourself that way. And in doing so, you kind of learn how to see others through that way, right? You can recognize what those frequencies and energies feel like within the other person, or at least you can get a glimpse of it, because I don't think we could ever know how somebody expresses their sides, right? We can never know fully until we start to get to know them. You can pick out, oh, hey, I see the feminine in you. Oh, that's how your masculine acts today. Okay. So you start to recognize that. And that way you can do this interplay. All this peace, this caduceus, these dragons, everything is interwoven. And that's how, our relationships should be. It's not like, I think our culture is making it so much more complicated than it needs to be, and bringing up, oh, I'm in my masculine today, I'm in my feminine today. Like, it's an interplay. It should always be moving. It should always be shifting and changing. And then when we meet each other, it's going to shift and change. Our girls are going to play real nice, or our guys might not, like that's going to be a thing. And so it gets complicated in trying to express it artistically and in film, because that's how we get things like Sense8. We get things like polyamory. You know, we're trying so hard to put this into a visual context. And this is it. I think this is like the best.
Yeah.
For sure. Absolutely. Good stuff. Yeah. The other thing I'll just say, since this is a Gemini piece, one of my last videos that I put out is exploring this concept that we have an invisible twin or spiritual double, and that this is really our soul or spirit. And I used the metaphor from The Simpsons when Bart sells his soul, and Milhouse has his soul, and then he's trying to reconnect with his soul, and he has a nightmare, and all the kids are playing with their spiritual double, and Bart is left alone. And then eventually he reunites with his spiritual double, invisible twin, and then, you know, things kind of work out from there or whatever. But with Gemini, you know, I think that the relationships that people tend to think of when it comes to Gemini and Gemini season and associated symbols like the Lover's card, they tend to think of external relationships. But really, I think that probably one of the most valuable things you can take away from the symbolism is the relationship with self, you know, and that there are more than two aspects of us, obviously, but at the very least, you know, we have this physical manifestation that eventually will die, but there's going to be another part of me that lives on, and you need to make peace with that other side of yourself, you know, the spiritual side of yourself. And so when I see anything related to Gemini now, that's what I think of. I think of, yes, it's the twins, yes, it's the lovers, yes, it's the brothers, yes, it's all the relationships that you have, but it's also you and you. It's you and yourself, you know. And so I just like to point that out there, and how mirror symbolism is a reflection of that as well. You're looking at yourself, you know, which is really fascinating. It's almost like you're peering into the spirit world and, you know, just seeing yourself. Obviously it's a reflection. It could be maybe the more accurate way of looking at yourself or whatever, but there is something really interesting about that whole entire dynamic of looking at self, you know. And I think, just kind of like what Emily said and Rachel said, I think there's a lot of power in doing that. And I want to work with that more kind of moving forward, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna have to, right? If you want to have the balance, if you want to like really have the best life possible, I think, you know, culminating these into our lives, these practices is gonna really help us be the best versions of ourselves.
Totally. You know, actually, just reflecting on it right now, to be honest, what you're really doing is your spiritual self is looking at your physical self. That's what's happening when you look in the mirror. That's the deal. That's why some people, if you're not doing well in life, you're not treating people or yourself with respect, it's more difficult to look at yourself in the mirror, because it's your spiritual core or essence that's looking physically at your external self, the fleshy self. You know, I think that's kind of the deal that's going on there.
So what's up with this this monkey in the middle, right? Because that's kind of like this classic, like, kind of thing, you know, we talk about this, well, with the monkey in the middle, and the monkey's holding a world. He's not facing out towards the center, but he is facing towards the more masculine derivative side, which is interesting. Is that because Gemini is on that side of the Zodiac, or what's up? What's your interpretation of the monkey in the middle here?
I have a few takes on that. That's interesting that you bring that up. One of the lesser known things is that, you know, most signs are obviously animal based or human based, or, you know, Libra is like the scale, so it's an object. But there are animals that are associated with the signs that aren't necessarily the sign itself. And so the monkey or the ape is actually closely related to Gemini, which is ruled by Mercury, which is why in certain esoteric decks, like the Thoth deck, the Magician, which is a mercurial card, you'll actually see an ape in there. And there's actually a few magician cards that have this ape in there. So I kind of look at it as like a more base sort of like you know, a more base element of man, I guess, not ascended, you know, or anything like that. So it's interesting that the monkey there is kind of analyzing the world, and, you know, has his little compass there measuring it and stuff, and he's looking on the masculine side of things, so he's being more analytical than he is being receptive or what have you. But I'd be curious to know what Rachel thinks, actually, if she has any opinions about that.
Actually, I was just laughing because I have the Line Strider Tarot, and the magician is a monkey. Straight up.
Oh, nice. That's cool.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating because in evolutionary theory, the monkey is the closest to human beings. And so, it could be that that is a collective memory that we all have of getting to that point or incarnating as that. I think that theory isn't exact, but I think it has some interesting ideas as far as Akashic records and things like that. And I mean, somebody's got to remember being a tree, right? So, consciousness, flowing down into the material realm while it's simultaneously raising up into the etheric. So I think that's a fascinating representation. I would say it's a mirror image of that evolutionary theory, whatever you think about it. But I like thinking about it as a memory, like, oh man, we're so close to being human. Like, this is awesome. There's so many amazing things about their communities and about that particular animal that are fun. And it's a cool connection because it is kind of playful. I do like the world is he's kind of holding that globe, you're right, towards the more masculine side, but that's kind of like a sundog moon cat type of thing. I was talking to Kaylee about the sun and the moon and this idea that, we might think about the sun being feminine, revealing what's in the dark. If we think of the masculine as the dark and the deep, and think about, when you turn your lights off, when there's no light, you can't see anything. It's only when light is introduced that there's color and shape and form. And so there is this beautiful aspect within the interplay that reveals each other. And that's something revealing about other. It's like you can't really give something to yourself. You can only give when there's somebody else present. So I think it's beautiful. I don't, it's almost like, hey, I got your back. Like, that's cool. I think it's a cool symbol.
I take away from it a little bit, like it's there's like in the background of the primate, you have all of this celestial consciousness happening, and it almost is like the monkey is almost like a focal point. It's not the focal point, but it's like when you kind of bring it back down to earth, you're in your physical primate self. You're whom, and you're analyzing the world from this physical point of view, and in the back of your mind is all of this everything that's happening, everything that is you, makes up you, is all of these things. You are the unicorn and the lion, the man and the woman, the Hermes, and the double dragon, which is fucking tight, and that sun and the moon, and there's that. And then, but facing the more masculine side kind of like gives me this idea that the Tetzcoatli polka, the smoke and the mirrors, the divine feminine is like always going to be more esoteric. It's like almost like the sun is like the exoteric, the physical, hey, you see all this, bro, it's in the light. Exoterically speaking, it's all here in front of you. You can see it, right? But what's that esoteric shit behind me? Oh, that's the smoky mirror goodness, that so it's like the artist went so deep on this. I'm gonna have to check out this guy's other art, dude. Like, I want to get a whole room. I want all this stuff, dude. Thank you for bringing this up to my attention. I never seen this art before.
You got it, dude. He's awesome, man. Yeah, there's so many little details that we could talk about here, but both of you guys bring up excellent points. And I was struggling for the words, but higher self and lower self. That's what I was trying to say.
There we go.
The monkey, right?
Yeah. That's kind of that's what I was. Yeah, definitely. That's a really simple higher self, lower self.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to the next one.
For sure. Okay, cool. So, I'm not going to claim to know everything about this mirror, but I believe it's called a Bangwa mirror. And a lot of times I believe you see them in doorways. And I just think it's fascinating that it's an octagon, and then you have the 8 trigrams around it. And then right in the middle, you have this mirror, right? And so I'm not sure if you guys brought this up last time, but apparently the mirror is one of the 8 precious things of Chinese Buddhism.
Oh,
so I thought that was interesting.
Yeah,
there's 8 symbolism along with the mirror. And
Oh, and
then
there's 8 of these. I don't know much about. I'm fascinated by it, and I didn't mean to
Sure.
interrupt you, but
No, go for it, dude.
I'm fascinated by um esoteric Chinese mysticism and Eastern mysticism in general,
Uh-huh.
because I mean, America trashes on China. I mean, and Japan. And it's just like when I was trying to look stuff up, about the sun and the moon mirror and stuff, it's just like you just find China's making a fake moon to illuminate the sky and like all this stuff. And it's just like, I don't fucking care. Like, I want to know about their like dope, deep spiritualism that they have. And so I didn't know anything about the 8 symbolic significance that you just brought up, but if you could enlighten me, please, on as much of that as possible, because it's so interesting to me.
Oh yeah, okay, just real quick, and this is just my understanding. So this was more of a study years ago, but when you're working with the I Ching, it's a divination system. There's 64 hexagrams. Okay. It's interesting that 6 plus 4 is 10. And so you have the 1 and the 0. I think of the yang and the yin. And so when you look at these 8 different sections with the 3 bars that are stacked on top of each other, notice that each pattern makes something different, right? So the 3 bars at the very top are 3 yang lines. And so the one to the right of it has 2 yang lines and then 1 yin line. So a complete yang line is just a complete line. And then so that represents yang, the masculine, the positive, the 1. And then the broken line represents the yin, receptive, feminine, more passive sort of energy, right? And so when you combine these lines, their system basically says that these are the 8 trigrams. And when you are doing I Ching divination, you're dealing with 2 versions of these trigrams. So you're basically dealing with stacked trigrams to make a hexagram, which is 6 lines. And so basically it's a binary system. And so it's the same system that we use in, with our computers and with like the most basic aspect of like programming is 1s and 0s.
Mm-hmm.
So if you combine a 1 and 0, you're going to get, you only have so many patterns to work with and so many different combinations at play. And so eventually though, you're going to get into this patterning of 64 and of 8 and 16 and stuff. So that's why when you're looking into like, like RAM or like gigabytes and stuff like that, it's always part of this patterning because you're dealing with binary information and data and whatever. So it's a very like, it's a very complete system. It's a very like methodical system. It's kind of a very straightforward system. And there's like a bunch of different ways you can cast your hexagrams to find out what energy you're dealing with or whatever. I haven't played around with it for a really long time, but when I was messing around with it, I found it to be pretty accurate. And so anyways, hopefully that makes sense. But the main thing was I just think it's interesting. I remembered the fact that a lot of those mirrors have the I Ching trigrams, and then you got the mirror right there in the middle. And then when I read this 8 thing, it's one of the 8 precious things of Chinese Buddhism. I thought it was worth bringing up.
I do want to throw out there, I love this, by the way. Thank you, Mario. This is so cool.
Yeah.
This is kind of where the gene keys are kind of cool because it describes this system in terms of your esoteric genetic, epigenetic makeup. So you're right, it is a binary thing. And on a zodiacal wheel, you have all the different gates and they all have a pair. And so, a lot of like one of the biggest words you will read in that book is a biofeedback loop. So you'll have these patterns and their interaction and these dynamics are, creating, it's essentially our own coding. And it's fascinating. I like this a lot. Something to note that I'm barely remembering it because I too haven't studied it in a little while, but each of these has a specific relationship in the I Ching. You'll have first daughter, third daughter, second daughter, first, second, and third son. So that tells you, kind of an order of expression too. I mean, I'm the first of 3 daughters, so it makes a lot of sense to me. But, you can just it's fascinating to look at the way that those relationships play out too. And I think that's where they get a lot of application for elements in real life. You know, if you're going to say, oh, here's how fire interacts. Well, what's fire? You know, here's heaven at the very top. That's, you know, that's all masculine. You know, earth is at the very bottom. That's all feminine lines.
Yep,
So you have a sense of what that is.
For sure. Yeah. So each of these sections, there's a correspondence there that you can look into. It's a whole system. You're looking at a whole divination system basically right now. But isn't it fascinating that what's right in the center is a mirror?
Yeah. And like one last thing, because it's a mirror, I do want to throw out the story about Amaterasu, who was a sun goddess in Japan. And she ran away and she hid. And the only thing that they could do to get her out was a mirror, because they were like, oh, this goddess is way more beautiful than the sun. She's like, oh, who's that? And they held up a mirror.
Oh,
nice. That's
So
very interesting.
Fun story.
There's so much mirror stuff, dude. Like it's
Oh, it goes on and on. I wasn't even aware. Honestly, I knew it was deep. I just assume everything's deep now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But once I started looking into it very recently because of the show, I was like, oh Lord, there's a lot happening here. This is a whole rabbit hole. So just real quick, you know, these divination systems are a reflection, you know, of like the essence or the source of everything, you know. And one of the quotes I came across was, the universe is the mirror of God, man is the mirror of the universe. And so I think that this kind of speaks to that too, because all of the energetic qualities that we have around us and interact with are encoded in this piece right here.
Wow. Yeah, this is a segue I'm going to definitely dive more into, because it is so simple but it makes so much intuitive sense, but it's the simplicity that makes it so deep.
Yeah,
it's like,
exactly.
It's like water itself, you know. It's like the most complex, you know, I guess not really, but it's so simple, but it's the deepest and most important thing in life. And it's just nuts. It's blowing my mind. So we're gonna go to the next one.
Okay, cool. So this was a mirror I came across when I was just Googling stuff. And I just wanted to point out, because you already mentioned it earlier, but the whole ripple thing.
Yeah.
And how ripples relate to the sacred center and they all emanate from the source of that center. And so I just thought it was beautiful that this mirror actually had the ripple patterning on the back of it, which was cool. So I can't remember where it came from, but I thought that was nice. Nice symbolism.
In the picture, when I downloaded the file, I think it said, I don't know. I think it said Iran. Something.
Okay.
I don't know. I might be making that up though. But this is cool because this is probably the back of the mirror, right?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah.
That's, you know, one of these things with these older mirrors is like the back of the mirror has the design and it's on the other side that's reflective. So one side you might not even recognize it's a mirror, you know, unless you're obviously adept on mirrors and culture and stuff. And then on the other side, it's the reflective part to look at yourself and to analyze and do divination. But these would oftentimes reflect through to the other side when shown through the sun. And that is just fascinating technology, and it's slipping away from culture. What's this one about, bud?
Okay, so Michael Tessarian recommended this movie called The Devil Rides Out, and I believe it's from the 60s, and it's a movie about this occult group, and there's rituals. I believe I just sent you one photo. I had several around, but the main one that I sent you is basically kind of like one of the more intense scenes in the film, if I recall correctly. And it's this powerful occultist uses a mirror to come through and gaze at this woman, and he hypnotizes her through this mirror with his eyes. And so there's actually several magic mirror scenes in this film, and it all has to do with hypnotism.
Wow. Well, that's, you know, just to touch on the whole silver screen thing. you know, and this mirror world that we're diving into, you know, later in because the next slides I have, so we studied, you know, ancient China, Asia, we went to Mesoamerica, and then the idea was to bring it into like the Renaissance period where mirrors were really just starting to blow the fuck up, you know, with the Renaissance Magic period, you know, John Dee and there's a whole series. You can get a PhD in Renaissance Magic. It was a time period. Renaissance Magic is so deep, and that's what I'm finding out is going to be a large part of the work that I'm going to be working on, is like kind of decoding all of that. And that, because that in my opinion is like the age of indoctrination. You know, this transformation of stripping out spirit from culture and then implementing this new world order that we're living in now, you know, because that's seemingly the time period, you know, like the Protestant Reformation, the Reformation period that happened, taking away the culture and hiding the occult more, because occult was getting really big. Like occult was just woo, like everybody was into seance, esotericism, and you know, there was so much spirit entangled into everything. It was getting a little out of hand, and you know, secret societies were kind of slipping the grip, and so they needed to, you know, set these orders into play. Also, I think they had a lot to do with understanding the cycles and the zodiacal cycles, and in order to keep their power, they obviously have to sway the way that, you know, the power regime is held by understanding the celestial cycles. The point I'm getting at here is that in the early days of stage, when the fascination of mirrors were brought to the Western world, they were used in stage play. They were used for making holographs. Then, and obviously, the original projector, you know, the film projector onto a screen, right? We're talking about painting the screen with some shiny silver stuff. Well, the projector itself is optics, right? It's form of optics, which is optics came from mirrors. And so you tie in this deep spiritual symbolism on top of, you know, making holograms or telescoping into the cosmos to look at the cosmos. You know, that there's a lot. There's a lot going on there. And that's what happened. That's what the Renaissance period was. It was this amalgamation of all of the history that had happened up to this point, because you're talking about so much mysticism going on and so much spiritual working going on and so much religious working going on, as well as war, battle, lust, power, you know, everything was happening. And the Renaissance period was this giant culmination of all of these things, and it almost kind of exploded on itself. And then that's what I think a lot of these like Tartarian people talking about, like the mud flood and stuff like that. You know, I think it was an information overload, and I think it was a gnosis mud flood. And so the mirror was brought into the stage in this new wonderment, and it was these magicians, these, you know, they call them sorcerers in Renaissance magic, you know, whatever, and the witch hunt, the witch craze, they were obsessed with illusions. They were figuring out how to use illusions to their power, and it's super fascinating. And I think that's what the next episode's really going to dive more into, is like the world of optics, and then tying into like the more Renaissance period, as we're getting out of this more, so people have a deeper understanding of what like was happening in the ancient world with mirrors, and how they really do have a deep spiritual symbolic play on all of our lives, and then how they made their way into the modern world. And it's just fascinating. And so this movie, which I think maybe I've seen like a couple snippets before, like some memes or something, but it's like super culty, you say, right? Like they're doing a lot of like seances and stuff like that.
Yeah, and Michael Tessarian said it's one of the more accurate movies in that regard, with kind of what they're doing and saying and what have you. So the fact that there's mirror magic in there, I was like, oh, that's intriguing. And then also too, I don't know if I should save it maybe for a future thing or what have you, but this just reminds me of mirrors and magic, obviously, but also too how there's like backwards magic as well. So as an example, Crowley said, apparently I read in some book that he encouraged his students and what have you to walk backwards, talk backwards, write backwards.
Wow.
And this was totally like a thing that he was into. And even he would play at the time because you could do it. He even listened to music backwards, is my understanding. And so he was interested in this idea of doing everything in a backwards sort of way. And I'm still understanding like for what purpose, but in one of the books that I read about John Dee, who has, you know, the obsidian black mirror that he got from the Americas, at the end of this book, it's called John Dee and the Empire of Angels by this guy named Jason Louv. He said that John Dee said that one of the greatest occult secrets is that everything is backwards here, and that actually time is going in reverse, and that, you know, they teach us the Big Bang and everything's expanding. It's actually contracting. Everything's moving into itself. And so he was saying that that's one of the greatest secrets that any occultist who has done a significant amount of work should understand and should know, is that everything is actually running in reverse. And so this kind of gets into some of the stuff that we kind of talked about earlier with things here just being completely flipped. And so maybe the mirror is, you know, reflective of how things maybe kind of actually are or what have you. I don't know. I just know that there's a lot of backwards magic that kind of goes on. Mirror magic is what people say. It also reminds me of this guy named David Oates. I don't know if you guys have ever come across his work, but what he does is he records politicians and like people of influence and stuff, and he plays all of their speeches backwards, and he looks for the subliminals. And so he says that when you play someone's speech in reverse, that you're actually getting their subconscious and their true intention. And so he literally will like go through and scrub through a whole entire speech and look for subliminal messaging and what have you. And then this gets into backmasking too. And, you know, different artists, you know, recording things, reversing it, and then putting it into their albums and stuff. So there's this whole there's a mirror world sort of reverse world thing that we could get into. That's not exactly mirror like the physical mirror that you're looking into, but it's basically things that are mirrored and running backwards, which I think is really interesting, right?
That's totally what I want the final episode to kind of be about, encapsulating on that. I know I just said I want it to be more about the Renaissance period, but but like no, I told, because I've been trying to work the way to get up to the mirror world and the altered reality. Like that was the whole point of bringing this up. This whole show was because the mirrored reality and altered reality that is happening at the same time that all of this is happening within this etheric zone. There is all of those backwards things happening, and that's what I want to get work up to. But I'm such an OCD fuck that I need to like program it out to have you guys need to know the context. Give me more context so we have something to fucking stand on. I'm all about foundation. I love relationships, foundation, building things, growing things so we can reach up to the pinnacle in the top, and you know, the mirror at the top of the fucking pyramid, and we could also, you know, I don't know what the fuck I'm saying anymore, but that's fascinating, brother. So I don't even know. We're just fucking going in on it, y'all. I hope everybody's enjoying this. Please make sure you leave a sweet, sexy comment. Gordy, what are you doing, man? You've been in like 6 different places, dude. You're in your house, you're in the studio, now you're in your car. Like, what are you doing, bro? What's going on?
It's at work.
Oh shit. Sorry.
Now I'm in the car. I had to drive and make sure that the dog didn't get out. I got a message while we were on that my dog had gotten out. And so, yeah, my dog is portal jumping. Yeah. 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 Thank you.
He's figured it out, man.
Yeah. But no, I'm here for it, man. And I love this stuff that I just want to hear you guys talk about this stuff. Like Mario is always like a wealth, and Rachel's like has a depth that it's hard to get anywhere else, you know? So I just appreciate all you guys.
Well, we
and
appreciate
Romy,
you.
dude, buddy, you're killing it. I love this stuff, man.
Hey man, just going with the flow, whatever the universe gonna bring us, man. And I love you, man. The whole Russian guy stuff. Like I couldn't find that. You know how much I've been looking online for things, and you bring up this one thing that just blew my mind, and dude, it's like I said, many hands make light work. You know, this mirror world, this altered reality situation. It's just nuts. It's just nuts. I don't even know who fucking knows even what reality is. We're all acting like we know. We don't know shit. But that's what I love, man. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, next slide. Renaissance magic, hydromancy, and mirrors and crystal gazing. To lightly touch on the deep topic that is, and the many more episodes that we obviously have coming ahead of us. You know, you guys study occult and esotericism, so we're diving into more of an area I think we're all pretty, I mean, at least relatively comfortable in. But here we go. In Renaissance magic, hydromancy was considered one of the 7 forbidden arts. Necromancy, geomancy, aeromancy, pyromancy, chiromancy, and spatulamancy, which is scapulomancy, which is bones, basically. And here's kind of what I was talking about here. The stage, okay? The using of these lights, mirrors, so like they figured out how they could make illumination happen, right? And here's the reflection of this might even be moonlight onto here, because the way that the moonlight cast on moon, just like we were talking about in the ancient China stuff, is actually a different type of light that you'll get. And you know, it'll make the shadows different. So if you have this mirror with light sketches on it, because that's what they would do a lot of time, they would, you know, the original ancient Chinese mirrors were they had these light engravings on the back, and it would reflect the shape onto the wall. And so it took like 500 years for the Western world to figure out what was going on. That's why they were considered magic mirrors, because they were like, the fuck's happening? How are they doing this? This is some witchcraft. But then they figured it out, and then that's when they were like, oh my god, I'm so fascinated by this. And that's when that's when this whole this blooming of the Western world using mirrors everywhere. And that basically the figuring out of these ancient spiritual Eastern mystic things that have been happening for just hundreds of years, once they found that out, that boomed the science realm, right? They were already like about to like hit the pinnacle of like scientific revolution and revelations and everything. But once the mirrors and like science came together, dude, I mean, it blew up. It fucking blew up. Telescopes were made, illumination was made, projectors were made, you know, casting lights on stages to make the stage play real, and then making these moving images in your own home. Like, dude, you know,
Right.
It really elevated it.
Yeah, exactly. Dude, man, honestly, so the mirror truly is, I know we call these our phones and whatever, the screen, the black mirror, but the mirror truly is the predecessor to the screen.
Yes.
I mean, there's just no way around it. I mean, that's just what it is. And so to me, it's just fascinating that beforehand they were reflecting things locally, and now we're just reflecting things non-locally. And now it's digitized, and there's deep faking, and there's CGI and all this other stuff.
That it I don't know, you know, how it works at all, but like just intuitively, like kind of touching into this understanding of occult, that there was either some sort of like celestial knowledge given to somebody at some time, or this deep working of like black magic for so long, and I'll call it black magic for lack of a better term, but to make this quantum information. Hello, Rachel. You bopped out. You bopped back in. Are you want to get up to speed? Or you good? Or what's happening, baby? What's your feeling?
I can probably get up to speed. My Zoom just crashed.
Mario just said he's just like, you know, we can't get around the fact that mirrors were the predecessors of screens as we know them now. And you know, and it's like just trying to put into words this thing that, you know, but like a lot of people take advantage of the fact that we have these magical the modern magic mirror in our hands quantum computing, like all of this endless information. It's like, okay, so I've thought about it like this before. The universe is seemingly endless. It's this big, huge network of endless uh endless information that can be coded. You can, in all these sci-fi films, they talk about terraforming a planet, right? Well, if you were to really have the technology to terraform, all that is putting and grouping things together and coding something so it creates this space, and it's information. Basically, it's cosmic information. Well, then you kind of like put that inside your own mind. You close your eyes and you have the universe. You have the seemingly endless black void of the cosmic simulation inside your head. It is the universe, and you can create and simulate and make anything inside your mind through coding, right? Through centuries, thousands of years of doing the work, progressing, getting here, doing it, failing, succeeding, and just propelling, we have created the universe and the mind on the phone, in the computer, seemingly endless, no limits, no bounds. You can terraform, you can create, you can control, you can free roam, you can do it all. And so, where did we create that? Why is that not the biggest part of human history, to let everybody know how we got it? Unless it is a black magic spell that was given to us through the the summoning of Pan through Jack Parsons, or the ripping in the space-time fabric and a portal through the mere dimension altered reality that was created to give us here on these fucking screens.
Damn, there was a lot going on there, man. This is epic. This conversation is epic. This topic is epic. Symbolically, there's so much going on here. There's like documentaries and movies that should be made about this. And I'm just grateful that you opened this one up, because I was not thinking mirrors until you started talking mirrors. And now that we're here, I'm like, damn, there is a lot happening here. I don't know if you have anything to say about what Romy just put out there, Rachel, but there's
Kind of, yeah.
Go for it.
I'm still studying some of this stuff, but it's making me think of our own layers, right? If you picture a toroidal field, and we've got different energetic layers, and if the earth is that reflection of us, there's that. But also seeing those layers as different planes of existence. So I think with things like opening portals, I don't know if that's more of a symbolic term or the best way to describe what your imagination is doing, or even peeking into those worlds, going to those worlds on an astral level, an energetic level, and when we talk about bringing those things here, it's like you're talking about terraforming. I read somewhere, I have been searching for it, I cannot find it. If anyone knows about this, please let me know. I have heard that there are quote unquote shamans who remote view planets, and that's where we get the idea of what Mars looks like. Things like that. We can channel those things in because we understand those archetypes. We have a context for, we feel what that looks like, right? That's why I love Edgar Rice Burroughs. Sorry, I love his vision of Mars. That hits home for me. There's truth there. But I think it's fascinating that we're using these things as portals to demonic realms or angelic realms, because biblically those things have always existed. I mean, even in other texts, I'm sure, those things have always existed, and they've actually had no problem manifesting without the use of mirrors. So, what is it exactly that we're tapping into? I think we're tapping into something completely different. Could it be a method and a mode for those things to operate? 100%, because we're peeking in at ourselves. People are like, well, I looked in the mirror and it really freaked me out because I saw something really scary in there. I'm like, have you ever looked into the abyss? Do you know how dark the cosmos is? Do you understand how scary and frightening that is? There's a reason for a lot of secretism about the nature of humanity. Because if we are a reflection of nature, you think about Scorpio. Scorpio is life, death cycles, death cycles. And to personify the process of decomposition and still love who you are in that moment is scary. It's scary to think about. That's why I think our culture loves things like serial killers. They're fascinated by that, right? It's this honed in vision of something. So when we're using mirrors to tap into this stuff, we're absolutely pulling from those realms without directly interacting with them, which we can do without it. It's just, I think it gets us confused because we forget that we're looking at ourselves. We forget that we're looking at the universe and the whole cosmos, and that what's coming in and out of it is a very specific representation of what's in us and what's in the universe. So, to project it, to express it, to channel it, I think is very possible. I'm still a little inquisitive on what exactly those things are. To me, it would seem, like you're looking at directly yourself, honestly, and those expressions. I think when we have named entities, that could be an ancestor. It could be a dense being. It could even be a past life, that you remember. It's coming forward, and because it's a past incarnation, it is a separate entity, right? It would be a separate entity. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about it.
Nice. I'm just thinking about how wild it is that probably more people, I would say guaranteed, more people spend more time looking at themselves through a screen and a camera than they do in a mirror, and just like the implications of all of that, on multiple different levels. And then also kind of knowing how cyclical this reality is, seemingly, if this is something that is premeditated, of like, oh, once we give them the digital mirrors, they're going to be hooked in for life. You know what I mean? Once they can see themselves, through the video and see their friends and whatever. And once again, one of the things I mentioned while you were out for that brief moment, Rachel, was that with mirrors, you're reflecting something local. So here in this illustration, right, A, B, C, and D, that's all local. All that stuff is actually in the same physical space. Now with the digital mirror, with the black mirror, things aren't even local. And then you have the interference or what have you, or the transmission with technology and with CGI and deep faking and lighting and all this other stuff that's kind of going on. So it's like this new age of mirrors. It's non-local, obviously. And like I said, there's lots of implications with that. So now a lot of people, they're not actually looking at real faces. They're looking at simulations of faces, representations of faces, and so I'm just thinking about a lot of the stuff I've read recently from Baudrillard, Simulation and Simulacra, and how this is a further, or further down the simulatory road with this new Black Mirror reality than we were even with the original mirror. But yet a lot of the symbolism from the ancients and stuff, they kind of knew that was even a simulation too, in certain respects, for certain people in certain groups and whatever.
Dude,
so
yeah,
it's all very
That's a good
fascinating
point.
stuff. Yeah.
What's that book? Simulation Simulacra?
Yeah. Baudrillard.
Let me write that one down.
It's very, very dense, but I got a lot out of it when I read it recently.
Yeah, I mean, the denser the book, the better. I mean, honestly,
Nice.
So yeah, I mean, just touching in on the whys, right? Like, because that's a large question, is the why of the importance of it. But I think we kind of like, we've done enough of this kind of research to kind of understand a little bit at why, right? Why? Because you can look at it on an exoteric level, right? These companies are doing what with each app that you have and with each thing, right? They're data mining. They're data mining. Okay, cool. Well, what's data? What is information?
It's binary. It's ones and zeros when it comes down to it.
And what's your, is that what your fucking spirit is? Your soul energy, is that what time is? Is it, are they harvesting literally your spirit? If the mirror symbolically through history is something that encapsulates spirit, then if the screen is an emulation of the mirror, then in turn of that, is it a spirit kind of transaction? And what are we getting out of it? What kind of spirit are we getting out of that transaction? Because when you're scrying in a mirror and you're looking for answers, you're asking your higher angels, you're asking your higher selves to get something. Well, when you're doing it with this emulated potential, and that's what I was saying. Where the fuck did we get this information about it? Okay, who invented? Who is on the forefront? The fucking forefront of computers? Bill fucking Gates. Do you trust anything that piece of shit has to say? Do you have anything that guy's ever brought to the table that's ever been trustworthy?
What it reminds me of, no, that's my answer. But also what it reminds me of, man, is all of these stories about, these different mercurial gods coming and giving humanity information and knowledge and this and that. It's like, dude, we're probably dealing with the same God that gave us this stuff too. It's a continuation of it.
And is that, and what those gods do is they come in and they implement this information in a time of deluge, in a time of reformation. And it's like, okay, so are we in this fourth turning? Are we in this reformation age? And if so, is it a good thing? It might just be inevitable. It might just be a part of the cyclical system,
Right. I thought it was really fascinating what you said regarding Tartaria and it being, what'd you say, information deluge or something to that effect?
Gnosis mud flood.
Gnosis mud flood.
Yeah, I'm just still trying to come up with the term, but
we're going through an information mud flood right now. There's so much data being produced every single day. The amount of videos on YouTube every day that gets uploaded, the amount of media consumption and all of that, it's completely through the roof right now.
How do you feel about that?
I kind of take more of a it is what it is sort of approach, I guess, with these sorts of things, of just like, for some people it's going to be very detrimental and it's not going to be good. For other people, I think you can make use of it, and I think that it's what you needed to see and what you needed to hear. I think it always comes down to discernment. But in my opinion, just right now, with the way everything is with technology and just culturally, psychologically, spiritually, I see people ascending and I see people descending, and I think that that's probably the case all the time. Would be my guess. What about you, man?
I just want to get rid of it all. I want to fucking crash the internet. And I just for a year, so people can just experience what it's like to have it crash after being at such a peak, to being able to just literally search anything and everything. Like the fact that we could put this whole presentation together of centuries of information and just a few hours, and then come and break down the entire universe, right? In just a few hours is amazing. Don't get me wrong, but I don't know, dude. That's what I'm saying. I live life in everything in my fucking psyche. A lot of times is a conundrum. I'm just like, well, I feel this way about it. Oh, but I feel this way, ripping me open. It's fucking ripping me apart. But I let it rip me apart. It's okay. It's part of my detriment is part of my psychic being. I mean, like, just looking at my birth chart, like, it's a fucking conundrum in there, you know, Scorpio sun, Gemini moon, and the Taurus rising. I'm not sure what that is, but it's just like, so it's like light and dark. Oh, you got these two twins, you know, doing shit over here, but I'm grounded and I love the earth. But, you know, and it's just like, I just want a hermit. Oh, but I need to be social. And, you know, sometimes on here's the only way I get to fucking be my complete self, because when I go around other people, I'm such a fucking people pleaser that, like, I'm a sponge. I'm an energy sponge. So it's just like I'm contorting myself to be around other people because I want to serve the better good. You know?
Oh yeah, I know what that's like, dude. I hear you loud and clear. Yeah, that's interesting. All of those things you bring up, dude, you're definitely not alone in that regard. Since we're just spitballing here, one of the things that kind of trips me out now, because I hang with you guys on various shows and what have you, but I remember as a kid there was some futurist guy and he said, oh yeah, people in the future are going to have like their own TV shows and stuff, and it's just going to be like normal. And I'm like, what are you talking about, man? How is that even going to be possible? And it's like, dude, we do that every freaking week. We have our own TV show right now. You know, that's what we're doing. It's
Dude,
wild.
It is so wild. You're right.
You're a host of a TV show, man.
Dreams come true. I definitely did, like, growing up watching all that on Nickelodeon and stuff, you know, like I was just like, dude, I was like, yeah, like I love Keenan and Kale and I want that, you know. Oh gosh. Okay. We're running almost on 3 hours here. Let's finish these slides. Okay. Let's dive out. Let's refract a little bit, give the audience some time to breathe. And this is something, Mario, that you obviously know about, this story that we're going to tell. And this will be the closing story. It'll be the segue into the next episode. This is the story of John Dee and his scrying mirror and his scrying abilities. And Mark, do you want to tell this story?
Honestly, I have not like refreshed my memory with, you know, some of the details with the story in a little while. So if it's been on your mind and if you've been looking into it, you should be the guy to do that, if you don't mind.
All right, I got you. So, okay. Just for context reasons, if you guys don't know about John Dee, get your shit together, first of all. That's all I got to say on that. Damn it. I was trying to move this. Can you guys see this little bar here? Or is that just on my screen? It's like the bar that says you are screen sharing. Why would you see that? You're not screen sharing. Oh, goodness.
I can't
Or
see that
screen
bar.
sharing.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Rachel. Anyways, so this is Edward Kelly, the prophet or seer to Dr. Dee. And it was basically the Trismegistus of the time, of the Queen's court at this time, was Edward Kelly, John Dee, and Francis Bacon. And these three collectively are responsible for a lot of sorcery, you know. I mean, talking about creating modern English basically, and you know, even with works like Francis Bacon's work of New Atlantis, okay? You know, talking about how the West world is going to be basically exactly what it is today. I mean, it's just like, were they scrying and they saw this and that's how they got all of these like type of Enochian type of information? You know, they were into scrying. Okay, John Dee had crystal balls, he had mirrors, he was an astrologist for, he was the scientific right hand man for Queen Elizabeth of the royal court. And what he would do when she would ask him questions is he would go to his mirror. Well, let's talk about John Dee's mirror. So this is, it could be a whole show. I might do it on my own, or might bring in some other people. I don't know, but it's called John Dee and the rebirth of scrying, and it's this part of the segment of Rennaisance Magic, this period where magic was real. Okay, this period where there was necromancy, geomancy, dowsing rods, you know, looking at the stars, as above, so below. Hermeticism was in full blown swing. Everything, magic, mirrors, you know, using bones, talking to the dead, everything was happening at this time in Renaissance period. This is a huge piece of history. But if you were to talk to people now about Renaissance magic, they would look at you and be like, dude, no one gives a shit, dude. Renaissance magic, who cares? you know, like they don't have the technology we have, you know, and magic's not even real anyway. God damn it, fuck you, look at your goddamn phone, that's fucking magic. So anyways, I'm trying not to get worked up and I'm trying to keep it cool. So John Dee, I'm not sure the exact story of how he pertained it, and I will give this to you guys. I will give you the further juice. But the mirror that John Dee had came from a ship, a Spanish ship of conquistadors from Mexico. As the conquistadors went over there, they basically were they were pirates, right? But what we highlight these conquistadors, you know, and say, you know, they're, you know, great explorers and Christopher Columbus and whatever these fucking jackasses were coming over and ripping these very spiritual people's lives apart, and they were stealing things from them. They were stealing their spiritual artifacts. Well, a French ship got in contact with a Spanish conquistador ship, and they bombarded that ship. Well, lo and behold, let me tell you guys this kind of fun segue story. Mirrors were thought of in the high part of the Renaissance to be used as weapons as well for burning ships at sea.
Whoa.
They would reflect the sun from mirrors, and they would have they would just have a high potency mirror, because I don't know how you could do that, you know, like burn a tree from a mirror like fast. But that being said, so there's been people whose cars have exploded and set on fire here in California with like a water bottle sitting in the windshield of their car, and it gets so hot here that it came and explodes something in their car, and their whole car sets, you know, the whole forest on fire. So basically, I don't know how the French ship got in contact with the Spanish conquistadorian ship, but they took it over and they stole all the artifacts that they stole. Cosmic karma in full swing. Later down the road, John Dee, you know, he's working for Queen Elizabeth, so he has quite a reputation. He was able to get a hold, or maybe someone gifted it to him. I mean, he was known as a fucking sorcerer, a magician, right? Maybe someone gifted him this, but it was a mirror that was said to be in one of the high temples of Mexico, used by the shaman and the priest for the scrying in Mesoamerica. Now, something that got brought to my attention recently is this thing called celestial residue, or I think it was called, or etheric residue. You guys familiar with that?
I am not.
So, you know, you like enter a room and it has this vibe of other people's energy in there, right? It's like this residue. Or you know, that classic term of like walk a mile in my shoes. Well, if you were to put that person's shoes on, these things, these are your grounding cords, right? They're full of your energy. So if you have all this weird angry energy, someone else puts your shoes on, they might literally pick up on that because the residue is still there. So think about the spiritual and cosmic residue that would be left on this scrying mirror, stolen from ancient Mexico, and then stolen again from a ship at sea from the Spanish conquistadors.
Yes, excellent point. Exactly.
You know, and let alone the fact that the mirrors are said to be holders of spirit. So,
but he liked that fact that there
loved
was this
it.
residue. Yeah.
Loved it.
He was working with the residue.
Very much so. I mean, John Dee, he was a black magician, you know, like he talks about, you know, Enochi and angels and all these things, because if he were to talk about demons, summoning demons, he knows that he would have got written off right away. You know, I really do think that John Dee was cooking up black magic more than he was cooking up white magic, personally. That's just my belief and take on that. Now, I am curious on your take on that, Mario.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's interesting because I've heard, you know, some of the differences between black magic and white magic, or left hand path versus right hand path, has to do with whether or not you are working with angels or demons. So, as an example, some people consider then Crowley to be right hand path because he's actually working with angels, you know. But I mean, obviously, we know what are angels anyway, you know, and there's lots of sinister things that they requested them to do. You know, so yeah, I mean, ultimately he's working for the queen. I think he's a left-hand path sort of black magic guy, in my opinion, on how I tend to look at things, even if he did call them angels or believe they were angels or said they were angels, you know.
And the thing is, when you start studying the Renaissance period, right, and they had this thing called the witch craze, where they were just burning anybody who had any sort of association with magic. But since their love for syncretism and religious syncretism was happening, what they would do is they would basically say, "You're a witch. We're gonna hang you, burn you, but we're also gonna steal all your artifacts and keep them for us because we'll work with angels." And so that's the thing. John Dee could never. He had to say he was working with angels, because if he said he was working with demons, they would have fucking killed him. I mean, he went to jail for a little bit too, and so he had to basically, save his own ass, basically. So, here we go. Scrying and the angel magic. While the first record of scrying sessions undertaken by Dee was taken on December 22nd, right after the solstice, 1581, he had already employed a scryer at 1579. This took place about a decade after the English version of the Elements of Geometry Elucid by the Megara was first published. It is said that Dee employed at least 4 different scryers. Among them, Edward Kelly was a scryer of some renown. Scrying sessions were conducted more than less in line with the format of outlined below. Kelly would kneel down in front of his desk, upon which a shoe stone was set in a full prayer into entreaty while gazing at the stone. During this time, Dee, oh, homie's coming back in. Sorry. I'm just going to start at the beginning of this chapter so we can hear it. Sorry, everybody. Ayo. We're getting into John Dee and scrying, my brew. So I'm saving this chapter for you.
Right on.
Kelly would kneel down in front of his desk, upon which a shoe stone was set in a full prayer to entreaty while gazing at the stone. During this time, Dee would withdraw his oratory and entreat the appearance of angels with prayer. About 15 minutes later, Kelly would have sight of one in the stone. He would then proceed to provide a point-for-point oral report on everything that he saw and heard, sitting in front of a different table. Dee recorded what was reported and posed all sorts of questions to the summoned angel or spirit. The tools that they use to engage in scrying are particular interest. That the very means of producing the tools of magic were taught by the angels, and that appeared through the scrying was a different characteristic of their magic. As the platform of which scrying was performed, the holy table, was a 2-cubit square table made with sweet wood that was supported by 4 legs measuring 2 cubits in length. In the center of the tabletop was placed a wax disc with a 9-inch diameter known as the sigillium emeth, around which 7 tin plates known as the ensigns of creation were arranged. Small sigillum emeth discs were also placed. While the first record of scrying, oh, damn it, I recopied the same fucking thing. I hate it when I do that. Damn it, oh, that's the wrong one. Okay, so what can we take away from that? Because I just fucking butchered that, unfortunately. There was so much more to go on. This reminds me of the where John Dee got his mirror. He got it from an angel. An angel gave it to him. The mirror that was stolen from Mexico was given to him by an angel, so he claims. So that to me is very fishy.
Yeah, when you're dealing with entities, he didn't know what he was dealing with. You know what I mean? I mean, he thought he knew. And so it's like, and these things, especially really sinister demonic things, they love to lie and they like to play tricks and everything else. And so he was kind of like, he was doing stuff that people had not really documented or done before him. That's my understanding, at least the way he was doing it. But yeah, what were you going to say, man?
Me? No, I
Yeah.
was just I just don't know where I heard that the other day. It was on a show, and we're talking about these encounters, these entities. What they'll do is they're tricksters, right? They will trick you, and depending on where you're at in your initiatory level of how much you'll allow them to deceive you and how much deceit gets brought to you. And so that's a really good point. And thank you for reminding me of that. Sometimes we do so many shows that I can't remember all the things that we talk
Oh
about,
yeah, dude.
you know?
For sure, for sure. Are you going to get into the wife swapping thing by chance?
No, I don't, I don't even know about
Okay.
that.
No? Okay. This is one of the classic stories with John Dee and Edward Kelly. So there's a whole saga here, man. There's a whole story that is just like fascinating. And I can't remember all the details. One thing real quick for people who don't know, John Dee is where we get 007 from. That
Yep.
was his actual, code name from the Queen. And you can actually see him using the 007 sort of like insignia or signature or whatever. But anyways, at one point they were working with these angels, and these angels are asking them to do all sorts of different tasks and rituals and what have you. And at one point they asked them to swap wives. And my understanding is they did it, and that was the beginning of the end of their relationship between John Dee and Edward Kelly. So it's like, what angels request you to sleep with your partner's wife, you know?
That's hilarious. Yeah, that's the trickster motif, you know, of, and that's the other thing. We were talking about where the internet might have come from. Where, like, you know, a lot of these times they're downloads, right? Or something like that. And it's like, okay, maybe it was a download, but it was a trickster download. A trickster entity came and said, "Hey, we have this celestial information and we'll give it to you. And you know, it's going to change humanity for the good." And you're going to be, you know, in homage of that. And it's like, maybe that was a trickster entity that came and gave that celestial information for creating the internet.
Yeah, right. But there are some people who believe that his workings worked. And so even Tracy Twyman, she believed that, or she speculated rather, I don't want to put words in her mouth, but she kind of speculated, you know, are we living in the dream of John Dee? Are we living in John Dee's reality sort of thing? Like there's like epic implications to maybe what he was up to. And that book that I referenced earlier, he goes through like the final major working that John Dee was trying to execute, and it's pretty big stuff.
Well, that's the thing, is like I fucking, there's so much on John Dee that like we couldn't possibly bring it up at the end and like touch on any of it. I kind of just wanted to tell that one story of the scrying mirror, how he got it and everything, because I mean he's such a fascinating character. Don't get me wrong, okay, but I do have a little bit of beef with him and Francis Bacon, because of the fucking crazy spells that they were doing. Because I do fuck with the fact that we might be living in that new Atlantis that Bacon was writing about, you know, because the other thing is like John Dee was a huge proportionate of pushing to the West world. He said, we need to make the British expand. We need to expand Britain, you know, and he was working for the Queen. He could say things like that. You know, he predicted the Queen's coronation. You know, that was one of the things that got him to be like on the good side of the royal house. They were like, he's like, I'm going to do your birth chart. Okay, let me do this thing. And he goes and draws him up this fucking fancy birth chart and everything, and speaks all this crazy occulted language. And they're just like, dude, this guy's a fucking genius. This guy's like, you know, so we have to keep this guy around. He's going to give us all of this, you get invited to dinner parties. It's going to blow everybody's fucking minds. This is just me speculating. And
Oh no,
you
dude,
know,
that's he was that guy, man. I mean, my understanding is he had the most expensive, thorough library in like all of Europe, you know, and that he would do it at the expense of not having a whole lot actually. And so that was his main thing, was that like if you wanted some crazy occult material or grimoires or whatever, it's like John Dee had it. He was that dude.
Yeah, I heard that he traveled around with like 90 books no matter where he went. Like if he was going to a town
That's
over,
wild.
2 towns over, just 90 books with him, you know?
A personal side note, I went to the British Museum and I was really stoked to see John Dee's artifacts, because they actually have his mirror and they have that sigil thing on the wax. Like it looks like a wax drum sort of thing, and these 4 towers on this like copper plate thing or gold or whatever it was. And anyway, so I go to check it out and they have everything except for the mirror. So I was not able to see the actual mirror. And I was really bummed because it was on loan to some other museum or whatever. But anyways, next time.
Or maybe they were doing some necromantic type of stuff down in the basement on that day. They're just like, we're actually scrying with it down below.
They let Disney borrow it or something, right?
Well, y'all, what's happening? You guys want to get in on this? We're wrapping on that 3 hour plus. So, you know, like what's the mirhaps? Give us the gravy. What's everybody's closing gravy sauce?
Practice with mirrors cautiously and consciously if you're going to do it. If you think you see anything that frightens you, that is your moment to step into your power.
Yep.
Because the second it smells fear on you, you're the toy. So if you're going to do that, practice in your power and your authority and your complete identity really is what that means. So even if you're exploring your identity, you know deep down who you are. Operate from that place. But as far as black mirrors go, be a little more careful. Because what's being reflected at you isn't the truth. And it just takes discernment. You know, it's with everything. It's amazing technology. It's amazing art is what it is. So have fun, but you know, viewer discretion advised.
Yes, that's beautiful. I know I'm going to. I need to actually do the things that we preach in here. So
That was awesome, Rachel. Thank you.
thank you.
I was thinking the same thing. This whole thing of looking in the mirrors and that whole idea, and keeps looking back at us. And the more we look out, or the more we look in, the more we see out. If that makes sense, kind of that the microcosm is the macrocosm. I mean, it's the same thing. We keep saying the same things over and over and over again, but the way out is through within. That's what we keep coming back to, and that's the same thing as the pole. It's the same polar symbolism as well. So you got to look within to gain your power out. So thank you, Rachel.
Yep. Yeah. Good call from both of you guys. Good stuff. I'm gonna repeat myself too, but I really like that line that I read earlier. That the mirror may very well be the symbol of symbolism. I think that makes a lot of sense because when I'm looking through these books, all these symbols, when I'm looking at the tarot, if you're looking at the I Ching, you're looking at a reflection of self. So ultimately, I think everything in this reality comes from the sacred center, returns to the sacred center, is a reflection of this sacred center. And so I think the mirror just embodies this quality of this reflective sort of thing that's going on here. And yeah, it does relate to your inner self and the pole and everything else. So that's kind of my spiel. Once again, I did say all of this stuff basically, but it really deserves to be kind of like contemplated, and integrated, and it's worth meditating on.
Yeah, I can't thank you guys enough for joining me for this series. It's really an honor. And I don't know where the next episode's going to take us, but if you guys will join, you're more than welcome to come on. It's always really fucking fun and deep, obviously, as we've discovered. And I think possibly even just inevitably meant to be. So, it's just like, why do we even have these ideas of fucking doing these shows? I don't even know. I don't even know where the fucking idea came from. It just fucking happens. So, for all of the audience out there listening, please, you guys, please leave your fucking comments. Like, comment what you think, what you feel. Like, we're up here babbling and jabbling and all the things, but like, it's to create community and reiterate information and just to like to see what everyone has to say, because the more things that people throw in and the more love and all this stuff that we get from the outside for as like the content creators or whatever that thing is, it fucking is so amazing to hear from you guys. What does this mean to you? Is this stuck out to you guys at all? Like, we practice it. You know, we're gonna practice what we preach. We want to fucking talk to you guys. Check us out over on Telegram. We are all over on Telegram, and we are chatting every day about crazy shit, dude. I know I'll be posting. Sometimes I'll be posting like 30 articles a day, like straight fucking juice. So like, get over there. Come join us on the Telegram. You know, I'll post all everybody's links in the show notes. You know, and you know, just stay safe, go outside, stay grounded, maybe bring a mirror outside, poop outside every once in a while. That shit is hella fun. You know, you know, they took that away from us too, you know what I mean? But yeah, so thank you guys again. Portals, mirrors, water, you know, mercury, pyramids, dogs, birds,